Yo, it's your boy TB Marley, 130 Yo Ass Tweakin Podcast, and we're back for another reaction video. Today we're gonna be reacting to Swamp Stories, Terrance Gangsta William Birdman brother documentary that Swamp Stories did. Shout out to Swamp Stories. Everything Swamp Stories do drop, I be tapped in, I be tuned in. Shout out to him, but they say I talk too much, so I ain't gonna talk y'all ears off. Let's get off into this review real quick.
Want to prove a point to people that I'm tough too. Do I have nightmares or do I have, no, I was young, excited. I guess it was the thrill, the excitement for me. Being around big bro, nice car, money, got girls crazy about him. So as a youngster, you look at that, you crave that kind of stuff. You can hide history, but you can't erase it. I'm a part of New Orleans history. I'm so New Orleans. That's a fact.
Welcome back to another episode of Swamp Stories. For this one, we do something that we've never done before. We unveil the entire life story of one of America's most notorious goons. And in this video, you'll get the scoop of his upbringing, his surroundings, and what led him to living the wicked life he lived. And most importantly, you'll also tap into his various crimes that have never been told before. This is by far the craziest and most intricate video I've ever done. But wait, before we jump into it, let me clarify a couple things. First of all, you might be wondering, how did I get all of this information? Well, firstly, we actually did an interview, and on top of this, all of the documents are either sealed or they were lost in Hurricane Katrina. I say that to clarify that nothing in this video can be used in court. But more importantly, this man has completely changed his life around, and he does not glorify anything he's ever done. Instead, he rather explains how this can happen and why no one should ever enter a life of crime. All of this occurred over 30 years ago, and it can now be told as the life of Gangsta Williams. So with all that being said, let's dive right into the video. The story begins in late 1970s New Orleans, a very transformational time in Louisiana history. Believe it or not, the 1950s, 60s, and early 70s were an amazing time to live in Louisiana. The oil industry was booming with refineries all up and down the Mississippi River and the Gulf Coast. Good paying jobs were easy to find, and companies were getting rich like never before. Well, because of the economic stability, many of the neighborhoods that are extremely violent and poor today were great middle-class communities back in the day. Whether it was North Baton Rouge, Shreveport, or pretty much all of New Orleans, they were all decent places to be. Well, in this video, we start off in New Orleans' 17th Ward, a historically middle-class part of the city. This is where a young man named Terrance Williams was born and raised early in his life.
I was born and raised in Gertown, Pine and Olive. It's the 17th Ward. Not too far from where Lil Wayne always rap about Holly Grove. That's where I come from, Gertown though. It was good. I know back in the day we had chickens in the backyard. I used to be on the Gertown swimming team. Gertown back then, now it changed now, but back then, Gertown was more friendly, more, family, hood, going to Gertown Park, swimming team, it was cool.
As Terrance describes it, life in the 17th Ward at this time was pretty good. However, his family life was much more complicated. Terrance had 23 siblings growing up, which pretty much made it impossible to have a proper nurturing and supervision as well. To make
23 siblings is crazy. His pops was out there getting groovy, but I ain't gonna keep pausing it. This video is 2 hours and 16 minutes, so I ain't gonna need to keep pausing for it.
As well. To make matters worse, he rarely recalls his father ever being around.
Because I don't remember when I was, from a baby, but I remember my father being around, but not for a long time. So, but for the most part, mom's always been my mother.
And because of this, Terrance spent most of his early years roaming around the neighborhood by himself and sometimes even dabbling in crime.
My mother going to work, she worked at the Sheraton Hotel. So I don't have a father here every day, so I can just rip around and do what I want. Actually, that's when I first learned how to steal out of A&P store too, back then, growing up in Gertown.
Well, despite the family situation and maybe being a little devious as a kid, life for Terrance was pretty good in the neighborhood. The neighbors looked out for him, and there was really never any concerns of violence. He was just another regular middle-class kid in New Orleans who was living a pretty good childhood. However, from his birth year of 1974 to the early 80s, New Orleans was changing very, very rapidly. By 1980, nearly every oil company in Louisiana had left for Houston, Texas. Anti-business and corrupt politicians led the companies to a state where the environment was much, much better. So with dozens of massive companies leaving, so did thousands and thousands of jobs, all within a few years span. So just like that, New Orleans had lost its biggest industry and 20% of its population. As a result of this, many low to middle class income families could no longer afford their mortgage and were forced to abandon their house. Banks took over foreclosures all over the city, and once self-sufficient families were now reliant on government assistance. Well, Terrance's family was no different, especially with all them dang kids to support. So at just 7 years old, Terrance was moved from the middle class Gert town to the infamous Callio projects. This was a totally different environment, but at first, Terrance was just fascinated by life in the projects.
I would sit in the window because I was infatuated with the project, how everything was set up, and see the little children.
At first, it just seemed like a fun place to be, but then he was hit with reality.
Callio project that's when I witnessed selling, murder. So it's like you come from one spot that was cool, laid back, just a regular environment, to now it's like, okay, these little children here are more fast, advanced, like you stepped into a different time zone.
Little Terrance had to adapt quickly to his new neighborhood, and at 8 years old, he witnessed something that no kid should ever see.
We stayed on Thalia, by the red ramp. And when I would come through the cut, it was this little young boy around my age, or around my height. I don't know if he was maybe a year or two older than me, but he would always give me a few dollars when I go into the store. I remember one day, man, the police was out there, and he was stressed out in the courtyard, like he had got killed back in the driveway. So to see stuff like that, you like, man, this stuff real back here, and I was young.
Seeing a friend die in this fashion has a lasting traumatic effect, especially on a child with a developing brain. And without the proper therapy and adult intervention, such trauma lingering on the mind can result in horrible, horrible outcomes. In fact, the biggest commonality amongst adult criminals is unresolved childhood trauma. Psychologists will tell you how vital it is to have professional intervention, which sadly Terrance did not have available. With the lack of resources in the projects and so many siblings in the house, Terrance pretty much had to bottle it up all inside. So because of this moment and overall life in the projects, he was forced to grow up way faster than he should have.
To see stuff like that, you like, man, this stuff real back here, and I was young at that age. So, of course, I was aware now that even little youngsters could get killed. So that put me on point to, okay, like I said, I wasn't in the streets then, but I was like getting prepared for watching it. And like, you know, as a youngster, you see somebody else doing it, so in your mind, you're like, okay, I want to try that too. Okay, I want to try that too. Okay, I want to try that too.
Like I said, the adverse effects of lingering trauma can lead to dangerous, dangerous thoughts. This is why community resources are so important, especially in impoverished communities. Cause while rich kids go to a therapist after they lose a soccer game, poor kids tend to hold a whole lot of weight on their shoulders. Well, from here, Terrance had no choice but to adapt to living life in the Callio projects. And during this year, New Orleans saw 233 homicides, making it by far America's murder capital. This is statistically the equivalent of New York City having 4,000 murders a year when they typically average about 350. I can't express how unfathomably bad New Orleans was during this time, and most of it was taking place in these various projects. Well, because of this increasingly bad environment, Terrance's family decided to move once again.
They was moving.
At 10 years old, Terrance's family moved from the projects to a house on Phillip Street. Kind of like Gert Town, this area was still somewhat middle class and definitely much better than the Callio projects. It was still somewhat dangerous, but it was definitely a much improved place for Terrance to grow up. Regardless though, violence would still make an appearance in his life, but this time in the strangest way possible. So let me explain. The year is 1986 and Terrance is 11 years old. He's flunking out of school, he has no goals or aspirations, and he's becoming known as a class clown in the area.
I got held back in first grade, third grade, and then fifth grade. Because I always was it's like I just always wanted to be the class clown, joke, custom teacher out. So I've always been like that.
On top of this, he has no positive male influence in his life to guide him in the right direction. Instead, he has a mythical creature in his mind, a teenager who everyone looks up to in the area. This would be his older brother Brian Baby Williams, who he had little to no memories of growing up. Baby was just one of his 23 siblings who bounced around from house to house as a kid, rarely overlapping with Terrance. But despite their lack of relationship, he definitely looked up to his older brother, especially after knowing his reputation. At this time, Baby was only 16, but already a young street millionaire. He had the cars, the jewelry, the women, and much admiration from the whole uptown community. Because of this, little Terrance was eager to meet his older brother and was hoping to impress him as any little kid would. Well, that opportunity would finally come, but not in the way he ever expected. And here is where the story takes a crazy, unexpected turn.
Yes, 1985. My mother's phone rang. Phone rang in the kitchen. I answer it. It's Baby on the other end. I'm gonna be around there. Come outside when you hear the horn, all right?
An 11-year-old Terrance is so excited that his older brother is finally coming around. So for over an hour, he sits by the window waiting for his brother to honk the horn. And then he finally sees what he was waiting for. A brand new SUV blasting music rolls up the street. Terrance is geeked, so he instantly hops up and sprints outside to the car. There he sees his brother behind the wheel, no one in the passenger seat, and a whole lot of girls in the back. That's when Big Bro tells him to hop in the car, and this is like a dream come true.
So now we got this nice fancy car with the rag top, nice little rims on it, so you young, you like, wow, this.
So little Terrance hops in the passenger seat, but this is when things take a left turn.
Jump in the car with him. First thing happens, a gun in the back of my head. I'm like, whoa.
What is going on? Terrance is
That's
so
crazy
confused,
for 11
but that's
year
when he's given an explanation.
He said, never jump in the car if somebody in that back seat. When you jump in the car, you gotta be aware who in that back seat because you might not make it out. That might be your last time in that front seat.
This is a strange and puzzling interaction to say the least. I kind of understand the lesson he was teaching, but why would an 11-year-old boy need to learn this? Was he simply preparing him for surviving in the streets of New Orleans, or was he preparing him for an actual life in the streets? Well, here's your answer. The next time his brother would come around, he would ask him to hop in the car once again.
And then this one night, man, I'll never forget that, 11 years old. He showed me this, it was a 22. You ready to use this?
Now with a blick in his hands for the first time, Terrance is ready to do whatever he has to do.
And by that being, yeah, because I'm happy to be around him. So we go up Phillip, turn left on Magnolia, turn another left on First, then hit back on Robinson Street and go past Jackson Avenue. And he pointed this young man and told me to shoot him. So I was like, give it a gun, give it out. I jumped out.
You can imagine what he did. I'm gonna keep going though. I ain't gonna even get to talk to y'all.
And I was supposed to run back to the car, but I ran off back to the house. Went through this little cut through the alley.
Little Terrance had just committed the biggest sin, but there was only one thing on his mind.
I did it, and I hope I made him happy. I'm hoping Big Bro is happy that I pulled off this crime, got away, and most importantly, I didn't run my mouth, and I took the little 22 and put it under the old sofa. I used to sleep in the living room. My mind was on Big Bro being happy with me, and I know now I'm about to get me some fresh British Knights was jumping back then. British Knights, Felines, them shoes. I'm about to get me something fresh to put on.
Went crazy for an outfit and a pair of shoes.
So Terrance patiently waited at the house for Big Bro to come back around. And a few days later, there he would come.
A few days later, he would come around. You all right? Check on all right. Big knot of money. You put this, I would hide in my mother's house for him.
After days and weeks go by, Terrance is stuck on a particular mindset.
I thought I was tough. I thought I was bad. I just thought I was just a little bad. I was a little bad little boy, and I just, wanted to prove a point to people that I'm tough too. I'm tough too.
Well, not only was he feeling tough, but he was also feeling respected by his family. But was that really the case? You'll see. A few weeks after this tragic incident, another older brother of Terrance would swing by the house. This would be Ronald Slim Williams, the eldest brother and the richest as well. Although Slim wasn't the best looking guy, he was the street and financial mastermind of the entire family. According to Terrance, Slim was not a bad guy at all, but he was definitely all about the Benjamins. Well, here's what he came to do.
Big bro, come around with a white guy in a car. I signed some papers. I would later in years find out that that was the insurance man. So it's like if we messed up, or if I fronted somebody dope, if they fronted somebody dope and they didn't pay the dope back, or didn't pay, okay, when I get killed, they go get insurance money,
At the time, Terrance had no perspective on what was really going on. All he thought was that his brothers were showing him love. He was pretty much doing anything they asked, just in the idea that he was making them happy. Well, sadly, it wouldn't be till much later in life when he realized that the family situation was not one of love.
I would later on down the line when I got to prison start reflecting back on them, like, man, oh yeah, they played me like that, but as a youngster, you just happy you got big brothers that's
crazy.
Talking the right talk, they there for you, buy you a nice pair of tennis shoes, a nice little polo shirt for school, and you happy.
This is a lot to take in, so let's take a moment to pause and really think about everything. Here you have a middle school aged boy who has unresolved trauma and the lack of a father figure in his life. All he's ever known is his immediate surroundings, so he really has no perspective that anything he's doing is wrong. In his own mind, he rationalizes it as, I just wanted to be bad, but we really know that it's much deeper than that. In fact, psychologists will tell you that no child is ever born bad, and that most people are simply just products of their environment. Well, if we're being honest, Terrance was headed down a terrible path, and the only thing that could potentially save him would be to have a better environment. So, what happens from here? Well, sadly, at the age of 12, his home environment would somehow get much worse. This is when Terrance's mother would engage in a relationship with a new boyfriend who had the potential to step up for little T as a father. However, this man was hardly a role model. Well, at least not a good one. In fact, he was possibly the worst influence that Terrance could ever have. So let me explain. His stepfather was not a gangster by any means. In fact, he was a well-respected musician.
No, he was cool. He played the saxophone in the little jazz band he was in.
Not only was he not a gangster, but he also really wasn't even a bad guy.
But he was never one of those disrespectful, grouchy, angry stepfathers. He was one of them smooth, laid-back, player type. He was one of the ones, like, he never put his hand on my mother. He, tall, masculine, nice, and he played that saxophone. He had a matter of fact, he had a perm.
So you might be thinking, why would this guy be a bad influence? He sounds like a pretty solid dude. Well, that's only because you don't know the darker side. The man had his own struggles and addictions, and he used his now stepson to be a vessel to get him his fix.
He would give me money to go around 2nd and Diner, this hood I started hanging around anyway, to go buy for him. And once again, I'm like, okay, this is something cool, I'm gonna go handle this for him. I'm young, because in my mind, I'm thinking he's scared to go. Somebody might rob or jack him, so I got this, give it here. And I would go get it. A lot of people would sit back and they'll watch certain children. They'd be like, okay, that one I could use, that one is scary, that one no, you can't do, that one that might run his mouth. So, older people, they sit back and watch children who they feel that they can use, as their little foot soldiers or whatever.
So just like with his older brothers, Terrance was being used by his authority once again. The people who were supposed to look out for him and have his best interests were failing him all the time. However, he wasn't able to see it this way, and this is how he entered his next chapter in the streets. After doing these daily runs for his stepfather, he naturally started making relationships with the hustlers in the neighborhood. So he started hanging with a man named Ernest who would post up on 2nd and Daniil, a major money block in Uptown. But initially, Terrance had no intentions of hustling because for whatever reason it scared him more than anything else. Regardless though, he was still all in on the street life and all he wanted to do was be bad. To this point in his street life, Terrance had only hung around and done things for older people, never anyone his age. But at the age of 13, this would finally change, so let me explain. While at school, Terrance met a girl named Chantel who he ended up forming a close friendship with, if that's what you want to call it. And Chantel so happened to live in the infamous Magnolia Projects.
Chantel red. I think I want to say Chantel had the little Jerry curl back then, little hairstyle. Mother beautiful, mother real cool. They lived in the Magnolia Project on Ferret Street, but her and I never messed around, if that what you asking.
Yeah, okay, buddy. Well, as their friendship grew, Terrance started going over to her neighborhood after school.
Sometime when we get out of school, I would go to the Magnolia Project. I would hang over there with her and Diva sometime. We just hang out.
This is how Terrance started meeting people in Magnolia, and it pretty much became his second home. They accepted him and it felt like a real community, so he pretty much hung out there every single day. This doesn't matter quite yet, but it definitely will in the future. Well, in the meantime, Chantel would get a new boyfriend who she would also bring over to the Magnolia Projects. Oof. Although her and Terrance were just friends, Terrance was definitely not a fan of her new boyfriend.
And that's when Chantel got the boyfriend, Mosquito. So he started coming back there. I didn't like him at first because he was kind of arrogant. He would get on that bike. He had a bicycle, black handlebars, straight across handlebars. If you had that kind of bike back then, you know, you was somebody in the neighborhood. But he would get on one wheel and just ride for blocks. And one day his mother bought him a gold tee, one solid gold tee on the side. And I was cutting class. And I seen him and I was like, I said, "Man, see?" He's like, "Nah, stop jocking." And kept walking. I'm like, "What do you think he is?" You know, I just didn't like him, and then him and Chantel started going together.
Mosquito was cool, arrogant, and had a lot of money, and clearly Terrance was not a fan. But being that they were now hanging out in the same circles in the Magnolia Projects, they were bound to have to speak.
Like I said, I would always go in the project by her house, and he started coming over there. So, you know, we would talk because I was already familiar with him through my best friend, Rodney Atkins.
After days of talking, Terrance and Mosquito actually figured out that they were pretty much neighbors.
That's how we had met, because like at nighttime, when it was time to go home, we would walk the same way because like I say, we walked. I lived on Phillip between Robinson and Magnolia. He lived on Willow Street between Jackson and Josephine. So, you know, we had to go the same way home. You know, that's how him and I got cool. We started hanging out together.
So through the strangest circumstances, Mosquito and Terrance became really close friends. They quickly found out that they were extremely similar, like together they were pretty much down to do anything bad. They were both running wild and way over violent for their age.
Always want to do something, like always was quick to want to rob something, want to jack, kill. He was one of the ones that was, he could be chilling. Like, Mosquito, let's go. Like, it was never one of those. He was never one of the ones that'd be like, no, hold up, no, I don't think. It was always on go, let's do it. Oh, you got it, let's go. You know, he was never chill, but people liked him too. You know, but when it was turn to turn up, that was Mosquito. When it was turn to turn up, that was Mosquito.
This was bad news, as the duo was now trying to prove who could be the worst. It's like when the teacher would accidentally put the two class clowns together and all hell would break loose. Well, although they were only 13, they were both already financially independent. On one hand, Terrance was scraping by doing whatever little petty crimes, and Mosquito was posted up moving weight on 2nd and Daniil. Because of this, Mosquito started having a bunch of cash and gold grills in his mouth. At this time in New Orleans, having gold grills was so important, like it was your ticket to getting all of the girls. So naturally, Terrance wanted this as well, except he was not down to sell you-know-what. For whatever reason, it was just something that he never wanted to do, no matter how easy the money could be. But he still really wanted gold grills, so here's what he would do.
The pecan pie that come in those aluminum ashtrays in the pack. Well, Popeye had the gold ashtrays back then, so we would go there, steal the ashtrays from Popeyes, get the scissors, cut the little circle bottom part out. So now you got a round little circle. So from there, you can design your goatee. Like you put a diamond in there, heart shape, your initials. You can do a little something with it, right? So I had 4 goals in my mouth.
Boom, problem solved. All he had to do was wear fake gold. But then his genius solution would be exposed.
I mean, it's lunchtime. I have 3 girls in front of me. Back then, if you had gold teeth in your mouth, a teenager, you were the stuff, you got the attention. Stand up talking to these girls. I don't know what got this girl. First of all, I still can't figure how I let her pull that off that fast, but this girl took her hand and she was so infatuated because she the only one just mesmerized about my gold teeth looking in my mouth. The other girls were just plain and cool. She touched the gold teeth and fell and hit the ground. I looked, and I just took out running. They laughed at me because they realized that it was fake.
So yeah, even in middle school, there was a lot of pressure to have money in New Orleans, and that's why Mosquito hustled so hard. He would post up on 2nd and Daniil all day to stack his money. Well, for Terrance, even after this embarrassing incident, he still didn't want to move you-know-what. Sometimes he would hustle here and there, but mostly he was just into being hard. You could almost say that while Mosquito was out and about hustling, Terrance was somewhere lurking around for his protection. Well, quickly, Mosquito started making a lot of money, and this made him a major target. Playing an adult's game would come with adult consequences. Thankfully, the guy was okay, but Terrance was feeling like the man for defending his friend.
I was 13 years old. Mosquito Man was at 14.
Well, this is when Terrance and Mosquito realized that their lifestyle was dangerous and they needed to have each other's backs. It's just me and you, Terrance and Mosquito versus everyone.
But we was already tight already because we felt like us coming from this neighborhood and hanging over here with these young boys that we still had to stick together. And even though these young boys was over here in the neighborhood, they just hang out there. Me and Mosquito was the one selling the in this neighborhood. But definitely me and him like start hanging together every day.
Well, even though Terrance simply acted in defense of his friend, his actions would still piss some people off. In particular, it pissed off a guy named Sterling from the Magnolia Projects. All he knew was that little Terrance had shot his friend, and because of that, Sterling was looking for him.
Word got to us that Sterling was looking for us.
Ooh, this is serious. Could Terrance be involved in his first beef? Well, even after finding out that Sterling was looking for him, little Terrance was not worried about anything. In fact, he and Mosquito would still hang out in the Magnolia Projects, even though it was a potentially risky move. And as you would expect, Sterling would eventually find them.
One night we coming up the project, coming up the street. A guy on a bicycle, young, little teenager, a little older than us, riding on a bicycle. We looking at one another. He don't say nothing, we don't say nothing, but it's not till we like pass one another up and we like the distance, maybe like from how this wall is, the room. He was like, who that is? Like, oh, who that is? Oh, this Sterling. So we like, oh, that's the one who wants us.
It's a standoff in the Magnolia Projects, Sterling and his boys, and Mosquito and Terrance. Terrance is ready with his hand on his pistol as he waits to see what Sterling's gonna do. Thankfully, Sterling doesn't want to get violent. Instead, he just wants to talk. So he approaches Terrance respectfully and all of the tensions ease away. Terrance explains to Sterling that his friend was robbing Mosquito and that's the only reason he did what he did. Even though his best friend was shot, Sterling was completely understanding and they all decided to shake hands. So that was the story of how Terrance and Mosquito initially met Sterling, which will be very important later on. But in the meantime, they go their separate ways and the story continues. It's now 1989 and Terrance is 15 years old. At this point, he's completely in the streets as he's robbing plugs, stealing cars, and pretty much cutting school every single day. But more importantly, he's eager and willing to take hits for his older brothers. By this time, Birdman and Slim are multi-millionaires in the streets of New Orleans, and their goal is to control the entire market. As you would assume, in order to achieve this, it entailed eliminating a bunch of rivals. So as crazy as this sounds, Terrance would get a call with a description and was willing to eliminate whoever they told him.
I get a phone call, hey, go on LaSalle and Jackson. Got Stonewall jeans on with a pair of felines. Handle that for me. Got you.
Well, not only was Terrance willing to do hits, but so was Mosquito, simply out of loyalty and just wanting to be bad.
Yeah, they all just came because I always would get the call, but he would become my best friend. So we hanging together already, and he had shot a guy already, so it's like, it's the norm now. Like, okay, look, come on, let's go. Come on, going with you.
Well, the madness would begin on January 14th, 1989. It's a cold winter day and Terrance is inside watching TV at his mom's house. That's when he gets a call asking him to eliminate a man who's hanging out in front of a local corner store. Without any talks or negotiations about compensation, he instantly gets up and agrees to do it. So he puts on a hoodie, grabs his .38 and walks to the local store. When he gets there, he sees the man standing outside, but strangely he doesn't do it right away. Instead, he decides to ask the man for $1.
Guy on the corner. The average person on the corner that's selling and their mind is my block, my hood, don't make it hot, keep it moving, right? I come around, hey man, you got $1? Man, get off around here begging, man, find you something.
The man who thinks Terrance is just some little kid who's begging decides to shoo him away. And even though Terrance was gonna do the job anyway, in his mind this gave him an extra reason.
So now it's like, I already come to do away with you, right? But you on that block and you got your little stuff going, you grinding, you hustling, and you treat this little young boy like a little piece of trash. Bro, I'm in the neighborhood I come from, where you come from, I ask you for $1. Because now it went from me doing something for this person to now it's personal now. Because you trumped me. I asked you for $1. I really wanted to go and get me something from the store. Even though I'm going to down you. You gonna get deleted, but you can't give me $1. All right, I got you. Play it off, go to the store.
So Terrance plays it off and walks in the store like any old customer.
It might would have been like maybe 1 or 2 headshots. So now would you get on from around here with all that big and the boy get from around you, I'm around here grinding. All right, I walk off, go to the store, he back out there. Now he got 2, 3 females out here. He talking and drug, got a little money in his hand. Me, I just had the gun in my pocket, come out, had a little short little black .38. That's my favorite little gun. And just...
Needless to say, Terrance completed the job. At this point, he's so far into this life that it feels like nothing. It's like a regular routine. He gets a call, gets the job done, and thinks nothing of it. Sadly, this would continue in a major way over the next 3 months. Between February 3rd and May 10th, he and Mosquito would catch 4 separate bodies in Uptown. They didn't know or know of any of the people they eliminated. All they did it for was to impress Terrance's big bro. And because of this, they pretty much got nothing in return for everything they had done.
You know, and no, back then it was never, when I get out this way, you know, now these days, these youngsters, they hip, they know like, man, I want to be paid for it when I get out of this. Back then, it was, man, I got you, I'm just riding with my homeboy. I don't care what is behind, what happened, and then I asked them what happened. All they know is I'm going to somebody. Back then, I never received a payment, like cash. I always would get clothes, shopping sprees. Not really shopping sprees, little few outfits, good looking out. I think more for me was to please who I was doing it for. Because, you know, coming up, it's like when you young and you loyal to certain people and you already took a life before, so it's like, okay, they ain't nothing, come on, what you need me to do? I got you, you know? Because I'm already out in the streets, I'm already committing crimes, doing stuff. It's not until you get older you realize, man, you been playing. Or man, you wouldn't done it, that was stupid. You took somebody's life for this petty. Sometimes you don't know what you're doing it for. You're just moving out because you trying to do it to impress who you're doing it for.
At this point in his life, Terrance understands that he was only doing it to impress his peers and his elders. And given that New Orleans is still the murder capital, he does have a message for the youth.
This day and time, we got these youngsters out here that need to hear from us, that we need to talk to help them. Let them know materialistic stuff ain't nothing. Conquer the peer pressure, So that's why I always sit back and I talk about certain stuff to let these youngsters know I've been there already. I know what you're going through, because I was that person who you are today.
Well, at this point, Terrance was a certified goon, and everybody knew it. His name was ringing bells throughout the city, and that's how he got the nickname of Gangsta Williams. Despite being just 15 years old, Gangsta had already managed to claim 6 lives, 4 of which done with Mosquito. It all started in January of '89 and continued for a few months into 1990. To this point, neither of them had ever been arrested for anything, as crazy as that sounds. It's cause at this time in New Orleans, you could literally get away with anything so long that there wasn't a witness. And being a witness in Louisiana is probably the most dangerous thing anyone could do. Even to this day, you will most likely not make it to the date of the testimony. Well, Gangsta and Mosquito knew this, and being told on or ever going to jail was something that they could never even fathom. The only way they could ever go to jail is if they did something completely reckless. So here's what happens. At first they were just a 2-man crew, Mosquito and Terrance stepping and selling everything. But then another guy would come around the neighborhood, a guy who was into a completely different life in the streets. This would be a guy named George Cookie Cooks of the Magnolia Projects.
Okay, it took me a while to really become friends with George Cooks, because when we first come around the neighborhood, he was like a standoffish. He was like maybe a year or 2 older than me. So I was like, yo, they call you Cookie? He looked at me like yeah, like all his answers were short. And I was like, who do you think he is? 'Cause I was trying to be his friend.
As he stated, George was a bit older and he was also a professional car thief. And being that Gangsta loved to impress his peers, when George came around, he wanted to show him that he could steal cars too, even though he had never driven before.
So one day I come around and he was a professional car thief. He bring me like a block off St. Charles around 3rd Street somewhere, and he was like, man, I got this car. So it's a Burgundy 98. Now mind you, I had never drove a car in my life. So he tell me, say, man, later on we're gonna go ride.
Finally, Gangsta gets to do something with George Cooks, and he's excited and he agrees to do it. He then tells him that he has to go home to bathe and that he'll meet up with him later. But really, Gangsta has other immediate plans.
All right, I'm about to go home now, take me a bath, and then we'll come back. All right. So I walked up 2nd Street like I was going to take a bath, and I turned left, and I come back up 3rd.
He really wants to impress George and show him that he can steal cars too.
And I go steal the car. So like I said, it's my first time driving. So I turn the corner a little fast. Or when I hit Jackson Avenue, I'm coming up the wrong lane.
Gangsta has no idea what he's doing, but he really wants George Cooks to see that he had stolen a car. So he tries his best to drive up the block that George is posted on.
I got nervous because I go on this 2-way street, but the car's here, so it's kind of small. So a car coming my way. So I had to put in reverse. I backed up in these people's house.
His plan goes horribly as he backs up into someone's house and has to run away.
Jumped out the boy, tried to catch a run. George see me later on that night.
So even though his initial plan had failed, he ended up going to steal a car with George later that night. And as crazy as it seems, this is how George and Gangsta became close friends.
And from there, we just got cool. We just started hanging out.
So now, instead of it being a 2-man clique, George, Gangsta, and Mosquito were a 3-man army. So they were already selling products and doing hits, but now stealing cars was added to the equation. On a regular basis, they would steal people's cars and simply joyride them around New Orleans for fun. Eventually, it was only a matter of time before they steal the wrong person's car. And that takes us to March 24th, 1990.
March 24th, 1990. We was hanging in the Magnolia Project right on Washington Avenue. So we leave. We go around 2nd and Danielle. There's some new guys on our set.
Gangsta and George are not thrilled that there's guys posted on their infamous corner of 2nd and Danielle. So that's when Gangsta decides that that's cause for them to rob them.
So me and George go back around on 3rd Street, come through the fence, hop the fence, come up the alley, and we rob them.
After they rob them, George isn't satisfied as he also wants to take their car. So after going through these people's pockets, Gangsta and George also hop in their car and drive off.
This guy got a Mitsubishi Galant lowrider with a lot of boom in it. So we go joyride, we go to the Calio first, then we make our round to the Melf because we was on our way across the river.
So Gangsta and George are just joyriding around the city with nothing on their minds. Little do they know the guys who they robbed were just civilians and they decided to call 911. So while the duo was out joyriding for fun, NOPD is looking for the Mitsubishi Galant.
Police put the siren on and pull us over. I'm thinking we better jump out and run, y'all step on it. So we flying up Simon Boulevard, which turns to LaSalle Street. Flying up there, when we get to Jackson and LaSalle, police pull right there to block us off, and George kept speeding. I said, what? We got to the Magnolia Project, jump out the truck, run in the project, and I thought I had got away, so I hid in the hallway. And that police came around and found me in there, handcuffed me, brought me out, then he caught George in another courtyard.
And just like that, Gangsta is arrested for the first time ever. The district attorney does not take the crime lightly as they sentence him to juvenile life.
Better for a cop in the body.
Yeah, we went to juvenile jail. We wound up getting juvenile life. Back then, juvenile life was until you're 21 years old.
Gangsta now had to spend ages 15 to 21 in one of America's worst juvenile facilities. From here, Gangsta is transported from New Orleans up I-10 to the disgusting Baker, Louisiana, a hot, stinky, sticky, and dangerous jail called LTI Baker. Here, Gangsta was introduced to a new environment, nothing like anything on the streets. In his life, he had gone straight to gunplay and he had never really fought before. But in LTI Baker, everything was about fighting and he had to get down. He recalls riots and major fights between the 3rd Ward, which he claimed, and pretty much everyone else. Overall, it was just a terrible experience and he and his friends did not want to be there. So that's when a fellow 3rd Wardian came up with an idea. Let's break out of jail. So for weeks, a friend named Bryce devised a master plan for him and his 3rd Ward homies to break out of LTI.
He was up there too in juvenile, so Bryce came up with this bright idea, let's break out of jail. I was like, all right, cool. First, we came up with a plan. It was a lady and a man working there. So I heard about you take the little eye drops that you put in it and knock them out. So we were gonna put that in the lady drink. But then I was scared. I was like, no, that lady might die. So then we come up with this idea. Okay, look, get the mop wringer, cause that plastic, that hard plastic, right? So Toto was gonna hit the bat over the head, and we're gonna take the keys and try to bail out.
Even though this is a horrible plan, they decide to go for it on a particular night. This is without any idea of how they'll get back to New Orleans, cause it's not like you can walk there. Well, this initial plan did not work out as Gangsta saw police lights as soon as they tried to do it. So they all backed out at the last minute and figured they needed a better strategy. So this is when Bryce comes up with the perfect plan.
Bryce get the bright idea to get one of his people to come up there and get us. So he was like, he said, man, you wanna break out? All right, cool. I heard the seal say, Darren Moore, what's up? He said, your uncle called up here, you gonna have a visit tomorrow. He said, man, they up here. I was like, all right. So they had all of us come outside and get in a long line. This particular day, they had all the dorm tourists, whoever had to get medication that night, come out, and they made us get in a long 2 lines and walked us all the way up front.
So now the trio was in the medicine line waiting for Bryce's people to show up. As soon as they see the car, they're ready to break off and run towards the exit.
So we sit down, right, and how it's made, it's like a little horseshoe, like a real hospital. A car come out, they got the headlights on. He was like, there they go. I said, no, that ain't them, that's not them, sit down. So I'm nervous, right? I'm like, man. So they come back, say, man, that's them. I said, y'all ready? Let's go. We jump up and take our running towards the front gate.
Now they're all sprinting towards the gate, which is guarded by an overweight officer.
And now I gotta face the man again and try to juke. I went around this little fast cell, hit my head jumping in the car. We head out.
The first step is a success as they juked out the guard, hopped in the car, and took off. Now they're headed through Baton Rouge in a junkyard car that's filled to capacity. As they're driving through North Baton Rouge, they figure that they successfully evaded police. But then they start hearing sirens in the distance that keep getting louder and louder. The police finally start to catch up, and that's when they decide to pull a left on 72nd. They then approach a small bridge, which the driver believes that they won't be able to clear.
So now we going on this bridge in Baton Rouge. Now they behind us now. The man, 2 of y'all gotta get out the car. Toto, the youngest one in the car with us. Toto like, all right, I'm gonna go. I jump out the car with him.
So now Gangsta and Toto are on foot and running down the bridge. Once the police catch up, they instantly stop chasing the car and begin to chase the two on foot.
So as we running down the bridge, I asked Toto, I said, Toto, you want me to jump off now? He said, yeah. So I jump off like, bro, don't get like about the bridge, baby, like high as up here.
So they jump off the bridge, run into a neighborhood, and begin hopping fences. They then take off their LTI shirts and throw them in someone's backyard. Gangsta is smart enough to know that they won't be able to get away on foot, so he comes up with a second plan. As they're sprinting through backyards, he notices a treehouse with a ladder. So he yells at Toto to stop and to climb up with him. So they quickly climb up into the treehouse while police are searching.
We laying down. I hear the deputy guard, whatever, out there. They running somewhere, here go their shirts. Man, mosquitoes tearing us up. We up there, man, I had to use the bathroom bad. And in the LTI, they run out of toilet paper out, so we always kept toilet paper in our pocket. So I did a number 2 right quick. He gonna tell me, man, you stink. We up here in the hole, of course, mistake. We right here by each other.
It's steaming hot, it smells terrible, and they're being eaten up by mosquitoes. So Toto's making an understandable fuss, but Gangsta tells him to stay put.
Man, them people somewhere out there, stop talking, man. We need to be quiet till nighttime get here, so we can get out of here.
For hours and hours, they wait patiently in the disgusting treehouse. Then night comes around and Gangsta figures that it's safe to hop down. As they're walking through the neighborhood, Gangsta has a revelation. We won't be able to walk back to New Orleans. So that's when he approaches a random man in the North Baton Rouge neighborhood. But instead of asking him for a ride, he asks him for a screwdriver so he can steal a car.
I said, man, can you help us out? I said, man, we need a screwdriver so we can steal a car.
That's a wild question to ask a random person, but here's how the man responds.
He said, look, man, y'all can't steal nothing around here, but go down there on that corner and wait in the abandoned house. I got somebody gonna come back and gonna bring y'all to go steal a car.
And just like that, they have an escape plan. A random man in North Baton Rouge is gonna help them steal a car so they can get home.
It's like, all right, cool. So we run down the street, go across the hide in the abandoned house. We chilling. I see a police come by. I got nervous a little bit. They kept going. So the brown Cadillac pull up. You go jump in the back. He said, yeah, man, I was in LTI back in the day. He bring us to this club to steal a car. They storm on the glass. The glass was shattered. We pop 2 times that way, pop 1 time that way. Let's go, start up. $5 for gas. Give him $5. So he tell us, go right here and go straight there. So we on it now.
Now, Toto and Gangsta are headed down I-10 towards New Orleans. They have an hour and a half to go without getting pulled over. Can they do it? As they approach the city of Gonzales, Gangsta notices flashing lights in the distance.
We drive, I see some lights up here. I said, man, they got a roadblock. I'm not thinking they ain't gonna have no roadblock for the juveniles back there. We just ran.
Thankfully, it's just a car getting pulled over, but still, Gangsta drives extremely carefully.
I said, man, see, I kept going. They had to pull a car over. So as I'm trying to speed past them behind the 18-wheelers, another car over. I said, let me slow down. So it's kind of drizzling a little bit. Both hands on the steering wheel, one on the brakes, one on the gas. We kept going all the way till we got to New Orleans. We drove all the way till we got off on the exit by St. Charles.
Mission Impossible is finally complete as Gangsta and Toto successfully make it back to New Orleans. Now you'd think that they'd be paranoid and would only want to hide inside, but that was not the case at all. Instead, they'd walk around the neighborhood to find their friends, and while doing this, Gangsta saw something he liked.
And I saw this chick with this lady with this fat butt with a skirt on. But Toto was in front of me walking. I'm behind him, so when she got to me, I was like, what's up, boo? So she stopped, talked to me, and Toto laughing. What you laughing about? This was a rainbow person with the breast, everything. I said, oh, man. And we kept going to go to the project.
What a way to tap off such an eventful day. Well, now it's time to go home and get some much needed rest, except that Terrance knows that he cannot go back to his mom's house. So instead, he knocks on his aunt's door and sees if he can stay there. Obviously, she welcomes him in, and this is when he gets a call from his mom.
We go by outside the project, and Denise, my people, she brings us back in the project. So me, Toto, 4 of us in the house. So my mother was looking for me. Mother get on the phone. You all right? Yes, ma'am. You need anything? I said, yes, ma'am. So I wrote her a list, tell her like 2-page, toothbrush, because I didn't want to use the people's stuff out of the house I was staying in.
Gangsta was advised to stay in the house as much as possible to avoid getting noticed by police and sent back to juvenile. But Gangsta could not sit still, so he decides to leave the house and go back to his old hood.
So that night, I left out. I went back around my old set, Second to Daniel. It had changed within a year because we had got locked up in March. I broke out September of 91, so like a year and 6 months. things had changed. So everybody, there's a few people out there, they looking at me, I'm looking like, yeah, I'm from this, my set, what's up with y'all, you know?
Terrance is not happy that his old hood had been taken over, but he also understands that it was gonna happen anyways. So he decides against starting a beef with them and instead decides to start hanging out in the Magnolia projects. And despite the fact that he's on the run for juvenile escape, he decides to go right back to his wild life in the streets. Sadly, Toto opts to do the same thing, but for him, he's arrested in the Callio projects a few days later. Toto is absolutely pissed, especially because he's facing new charges for a gun. In fact, he's so pissed that he asks Terrance to break him out of jail before he can be sentenced. Obviously, this is a terrible idea, but in typical Terrance Williams fashion, he decides to do it.
Now, this is what we about to do. We about to do some crazy stuff, man. We about to try to break him out to youth study. When they open the door, we're gonna run in there, get him out of there.
The initial idea is to break in the juvenile center and rush Toto out. Gangsta and his friends are ready to do it, but coincidentally, the day of the plan, Toto has a court date. As you know, courtrooms are surrounded by tons of police, so they're obviously not gonna still try to break him out, right? Well, unbelievably, they come up with a second plan.
So what happened, he had moved from there to the courthouse. The plan now is to go around there, and when he come out the courthouse, put a gun on the guard, get him from there.
So they head over to the courthouse ready to break him out. They get there, and right then, Gangsta has a moment of clarity.
I said, man, don't y'all think if we go around and try to free him up, people might see us and try to get to us or whatever the case may be. He said, yeah, you're right. So I was like, good.
Thankfully, the plan failed and Toto was sent back to LTI. So with Toto being arrested and sent back, you'd think that Gangsta would want to lay low and learn from his friend's mistakes. But this was not the case at all, even with Mosquito, George, and Toto being locked up. He had nobody left to run with in the streets, so to fill up his days, he actually enrolled back in school. He enrolled with a fake name and risked his freedom just so he could hang in the hallways and talk to girls. Gangsta recalls this as the most fun and relaxing time of his life, as all he was focused on was having fun. Well, this kind of lifestyle would last for a few months as he awaited his friends returning from jail. Eventually, George and Mosquito would be released from jail, and Gangsta went right back to his old life in the streets.
George come home, so all three of us running together now, robbing people, doing well. We got, get money. We had a big, long thumbcocker 4.4. We had a thumbcocker 357, 9mm and Mac 11s and stuff.
The trio was absolutely tearing up the streets of New Orleans. They would hang out in the projects and spend their days committing sporadic crimes. But then on a random day, they notice something that pisses them off. The guy who had told on them for stealing his car has that same car parked right in the projects. Even though the guy had literally done nothing wrong, George and Gangsta still wanted to get revenge.
One morning, me and George, we bored. The same guy we robbed that caused us to go to juvenile jail, his truck is parked. What are the chances? So I'm like, wait till he come out, we gonna kill him.
So George and Gangsta patiently wait outside for the man to come back to his car. Then hours and hours go by and the man never comes to his car.
He told us he got us in trouble, man, with juveniles. George like, man, he might be in there too long. So George had a 36 round clip and shot the truck up.
At this point, they have no regard for people's property and most importantly, human life. Every day brings new destruction as they're tearing up the New Orleans streets. But as they say, what goes around comes around too. Gangsta and his crew felt untouchable because to this point, they seriously had never been touched. However, when you're living reckless and wild, you'll run into people who are just as reckless as you. Their first consequences in the streets would come on a random day in the Magnolia projects.
I was on Magnolia Street, Magnolia 6. There's this car pull up. They want to buy
Well, instead of selling to the man, Terrance's crew decide to rob him. While all of this is happening, Terrance happens to be in the corner watching. So while his friends are going through the guy's stuff, Terrance notices that the guy is armed and dangerous.
He got a chrome gun in his hand. I see the gun. It's dark in the courtyard where he's at. So he starts shooting. And when he shot, I get hit in the foot.
Thankfully, the guy misses both of Terrance's friends, but he hits Terrance in the foot. So now, even though he's wanted by police, Terrance knows that he needs to go to the hospital. So his friends rush him to the emergency room, and thankfully he's able to be fixed up. Now, because he's wanted for juvenile escape, in a normal society he would be taken straight to jail. But this is New Orleans and nobody knows what's going on. So without running his name or checking his record, he's sent right out of the hospital.
Yeah, I got up out of there. I made it up out of there. Can I do something? Give me a second. Can I say something? Hello? Cause she here. My people here.
What's up, la mama? What's up with you? La, c'est la. What's up with you? Well, at this point, Terrance is really invincible as he seems to duck and dodge his way out of every consequence. Whether it's getting away with a bunch of crimes, escaping juvenile jail, or hospitals not even running his name. Gangsta simply can never be taken down, or at least that's what it was seeming like. But then he finally makes a mistake that puts a temporary end to all of his madness. Him and his boys decide to hit a house lick for the very first time. Even though they're already making money in the streets, they decide to do it just for the sake of doing it. So for their first step, they rent a car from a guy they know. For $10, he lets them use the car, but they have to return it in a few hours. Well, now that they have a getaway car, they decide to do it.
No, we had a guy that was selling in the project. We decided to rob the house.
To get in the house, George wants to push in the air conditioning and have Terrance climb inside.
No, at first he was like, man, we could get this window, man, I'm going in there. So what happened is they got an air condition. Push the air condition in. He said, man, get in. I said, no, man, somebody might be in there. He said, man, I'm gonna start shooting something. Yeah, but you might hit me.
So that's when Terrance thinks of a better solution. Let's find someone else to hop in first.
So I go run around and get this crackhead, have her to come back. We put her in the window.
So she hops in, runs around, and says that nobody's inside. So now it's officially go time.
So she get back out the window, so that lets us know nobody's there. I get in there, he get in there. I go straight to the closet. They got a pump gun. We took that. Then I went in the drawer. That's where all the money, stacks of money. So I'm stuffing the money in my pockets, hiding money in my socks and all that. We get all the money out the drawer.
Boom, they hit the house. Now it's time to drive away and return the car. But instead, Terrance opts to go straight to the mall to blow all of the money. So he goes in a jewelry store and buys a grill, and George stands outside and talks to some girls. They think that it's a great day, but little do they know they had gone over the time with the car, and the owner decided to report it stolen.
I'm thinking the car good because we paid $10 for the car. The man had reported the cost because we were gone over the time.
Because of this, New Orleans police start searching the city for the car. So right after wasting their money, George and Terrance hop in the car and head down Canal Street. That's when police get behind them, corner them in, and then arrest them. Obviously, they know nothing about the home invasion, but they get them for the stolen car. So now Terrance faces charges of stealing a car and escaping juvenile. Or is that right? Well, you must not know Terrance because he already had a plan to shake it.
Lock me and him up, we go to the juvenile jail. While we in juvenile bureau wait. So that man said, what's your name? I said, Richard Broomfield.
He gives the officer a fake name, but the officer knows it's fake because he has a TW tattoo on his arm.
He said, boy, what that TW stand for? That's my father, he passed away, sir.
The officer does not buy it for a second, so he calls in the co-defendant and asks him to give up his name.
He say he go get Hank, he go get my best friend, but he don't bring him out by me. He go in there, hear him talk. What's his name? I'm like, man, Hank better not rattle me. Hank loud. Richard Broomfield, that's all I know about it.
His co-defendant stays solid, but the officer still does not buy the fake name. So he decides to ask Terrance what school he goes to so he can look up the enrollment.
So the man said, what school you go? I said, Booker T. Washington. So he got this big, thick book, and then he opened it. Look, you don't see that name. But I know this is a real name because this guy lived down the block. It was my big brother friend. Richard Broomfield is a real name, and he don't get in no trouble. So, Richard Broomfield, sir, I'm gonna beat your butt. If you lying, we're gonna do a fingerprint.
So now Terrance is headed to court under the fake name of Richard Broomfield. So the court date comes around and here's what happens. Somehow the courts don't double check his identity and they accept him as Richard Broomfield. Because of this, the judge sees that he's a good student and doesn't have a criminal record. So even though it's a serious charge, the judge decides to be lenient and offers him probation for a few more years. And just like that, Terrance is able to duck consequences yet another time. George and his mother have no idea that this occurred, and while he was released, they were at home debating whether he was going to go to jail or sent back home. And that's when Terrance pops up out of nowhere.
George and my mother, oh, he going back to juvenile jail. They got his butt now. My man ain't know that boy smoke. He gonna get up out of there. Soon as they're in there having the debate, I knock on the door. Back!
So now he's on supervised release under his fake name, and he's wanted for juvenile escape for his real name. He's maybe the most wanted man in New Orleans, and the courts just simply have no idea. Terrance takes the justice system as a complete joke, and he decides to go out to the club the same night he's released. So a couple of his friends come to pick him up from the Magnolia Projects, and they head down Willow Street. After making a right turn out of the projects, the police get behind them and turn on their lights. The driver forgot to use his turn signal, and now the police smell you-know-what in the car. So they direct them to step out of the car, and they pat them all down.
I didn't think to run or nothing, man. That man pat me down and found the gun.
So now Terrance is handcuffed sitting on the curb facing a misdemeanor gun charge.
George come outside like, give him a fake name, yo. I'm like, bro, I can't go back to juvenile.
Terrance knows that going to juvenile court is a horrible idea because he'd have to face the judge who just let him out under the Richard Broomfield name. So going to juvenile court is not an option, so he comes up with plan B. He recently turned 18, and because of this he figures that giving them his real name and date of birth might be the best idea.
Can't go back now, so I give him my real name, but 74 date of birth.
So now it's March of 1992, and Terrance makes his court appearance for first-time gun possession, a misdemeanor charge in Louisiana. This in itself really isn't that serious, as the max sentence is only 6 months in jail, but typically people only get probation. However, the district attorney makes a major mistake and circles felony on his charge.
I go to court for the gun. They made a mistake and circle felony on the gun, but really it was my first time as an adult, so it was really a state misdemeanor.
Because of this crucial mistake, the judge dismisses his charges completely. So once again, he somehow wiggles his way out of consequences. However, because he used his real name, he still had to serve the remainder of his juvenile sentence. While Terrance agrees that this is fair, but he does have one request. Send me to the LTI in Monroe and don't send me to Baker. The judge thinks nothing of it and schedules him a bus ride up to Monroe. And here is where things somehow fall into Terrance's favor once again. He takes the 6-hour bus ride to Monroe with the mentality that he'll stay there for 3 years. But little does he know, LTI Monroe was not informed that he was coming. So when he arrives to the facility, they don't see his name on the list and they send him right back to New Orleans. So now he's on another 6-hour bus ride right back home. After being released, he walks right back to the Magnolia Projects.
My mother inside, brother said, Mama, guess what? I got a profit, Mom. She said, hey, babe. She said, Terrance, you ain't break out again, did you? I said, no, Mama, they released me this time. This for real.
Gangsta is excited to be home and so are his friends, so they decide to go out to the club to celebrate. So Gangsta, George, and a couple friends from the Melphamine Projects decide to go out. At this time, the Melf is beefing with the 7th Ward, so the group of guys are on tip ready if anything happens. So the night at the club goes by just fine, as the guys have no drama. Everyone empties out into the parking lot, and that's when Norris from the Melf sees his ops from the 7th Ward. He then turns to Gangsta and George, he points out his op, and that's all it takes. Instantly, George, Gangsta, and Norris from the Melf get ready to down the op. So they whip out Blix, and in front of everyone they walk across the parking lot. There, they look at the man, and BAM! Despite being hit 16 times, somehow the man survives. At this time in New Orleans, 99 out of 100 of these type of incidents would go unsolved. Although there were dozens of witnesses, nobody would ever dare tell on a group like them. So because of this, Gangsta, George, and Norris would go about their lives with zero worries. But little do they know, the man was so angry that he decided to tell police everything that happened. And just like that, Gangsta, George, and Norris are arrested for attempted murder. So now with the witness testimony, Gangsta has to be cooked, right? Like, we know he's a magician, but I don't think he can escape this one.
So I had hit him up around the club like 10 times, then Norris, George went up and hit him 4 more times, but he survived. So he's coming to court on us now.
So not only did he give descriptions to police, but now he's coming to court to testify on the trio. So in other words, there's truly no escaping this one. However, for Norris, because he had no criminal record, the DA decided to be lenient and offer him 10 years of probation. George was given the same deal, but for Terrance, the district attorney was not playing at all. Because of his horrible reputation and shenanigans of the past, the city of New Orleans wanted to wash him away. He was now facing 12 years in prison, and it was strongly looking like he was gonna get it. So this is when he's finally held accountable. Right? But then Norris Crawford comes through and saves the day.
Norris get on the stand, they say, my name Norris Crawford. I'm the one that shot Ronald Stanfield. Terrance had nothing to do with it. All the DA was ticked off.
So believe it or not, because of this, Terrance is released right back to the Magnolia Projects. Somehow he's able to escape literally every situation. While this situation did not scare him at all, because right as he got home, he went right back to his old lifestyle in the streets. Absolutely nothing changed in Terrance's mentality, except he started hanging with a new couple of guys. While he was in jail fighting his case, he made friends with two specific people. First would be a guy named Dooney, a certified stepper from the 17th Ward. And second would be a guy that you would never expect. This would be Sterling, the same guy he had a standoff with a few years back. Well, while they were locked up, they ended up becoming close friends and agreeing to run the streets together once they get out.
I get out in 93, I think September 93. Dooney and Sterling already home. I come home. Then Mosquito come home. So now all us in the project, robbing, hitting legs, coming together, putting plans together. Dooney got to connect a Cuban, a Latino connect.
Just like that, the Magnolia Projects had a crew of 4 dangerous men running the streets. Gangsta, Dooney, Sterling, and Mosquito were inseparable and definitely unstoppable too. They wanted to be rich, feared, and glamorized in New Orleans. They were already dangerous and feared, so to run up the money, they started moving serious weight in the streets. But unlike Birdman and Slim, they weren't business savvy and they kept blowing all of their money. So for a while, here's how it would go. First, they'd sell a bunch of you-know-what, and then they'd blow all of the profits. Then, once they realized they were broke, they would find a new supplier to rob. They were basically like a group of steppers who were trying to compete with real hustlers and kingpins. Well, once Birdman heard that they were broke, he decided to do his little brother a favor. He decided to front them some cash and a whole lot of product.
So having Birdman come through, and he front all us a kilo of came through, hit us all y'all go.
Obviously, Gangsta was thankful for his big bro, but Sterling, well, he had other plans.
I saw it in Sterling how he want to rob. I'm like, no, don't do that. No, we can't rob no thief, boy. We ain't doing that.
Not only could Gangsta sense that Sterling wanted to rob him, but Birdman could too. So after stuffing their pockets, Birdman pulls Gangsta to the side and asks him a crazy question.
I remember him calling me to the bar, asking me, like, if it came down to it, would I take one of them out?
Even though Birdman's his blood brother, his friends are way closer and much more dear to him at this time. So in his heart, he knows very well that he would never eliminate one of his 3 friends. However, he also knows that if he doesn't please his big brother, he might not make it out of the question.
Of course I'm gonna get it right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I pick one of them, but in my heart, I'm like, this is my brothers here, we run the street together. So if I'm like, no, I wouldn't do that, I might not make it. I'm going to the grave. This man might hit my head. So I gotta give him the answer you wanna hear. Yeah, man, I got you, man.
What a cold way to have to live. Not only does it show that he believed that his own brother would whack him, but it also shows the deep loyalty he had for his friends. The 4 of them were real brothers, through thick and thin in a city full of snakes. Gangsta, Sterling, Mosquito, and Dooney were truly an unstoppable force in New Orleans. Within a few months, all of their wishes were coming true as they were becoming real New Orleans superstars. And because of this, they were given a special name by the girls in the projects.
These girls at the project, they be calling y'all hot boys. Yeah.
Gangsta absolutely loved the name as it represented being young with money, feared, and admired by all. And just like that, they started calling themselves the Hot Boys of the Magnolia. So now welcome to the Hot Boy era. Well, although they had 4 main members, the group was actually larger than just them.
George, Mike Mosquito. You know, we had all these people that were hot boys. The only reason why the four of us stood out is because Mike and George ain't go to doing a life sentence for something they didn't do. You got Stone, the big dog, getting money. You got Skip Boo over here. You got Logger Black, Soda Slim, Dougaloo, all of them hanging over here. It's just Sterling, Dooney, Mosquito, and myself hung together every day. We all hung together every day, wore each other clothes. So it was like, okay, we the hot dog, we click tight.
Now that the Hot Boys were official and taking over the streets, Gangsta wanted to lay down some laws. We never rob each other, cross each other, hurt anyone innocent, and most importantly, we never snitch. So in order to convey these rules, Gangsta ordered a roundtable meeting with all of the members plus Birdman and Slim.
We all had sat at the round table talking, right? So as I'm looking around the table, these killers around them, Birdman, everybody, we get money. I was like, listen, man, as we sit down, we talk about things, do what you don't do, da-da-da. That's when all the rules come about. I was very vocal. So I'm looking at Birdman, I'm like, if you ever get stopped by the police or if you ever get hemmed up, don't talk to the police. Do not get no statements. That's a violation. I made all these rules. That's why now, in this day and time, I don't get mad or be upset with none of them because I made those rules. Don't sit down, don't never talk with the police. Don't never, go under an interrogation room. No. I want my lawyer. I knew better. When I was in my juvenile state, when that man wanted me to give a statement when I was a juvenile, I said, I want my lawyer. My mother had to coach me on the phone, tell me you don't want to talk, you want your lawyer.
So now that the rules were set, the Hot Boys were out in the streets for money, power, and blood if they need to. I emphasize if they need to because at first, the Hot Boys really had no rivals. Even though Gangsta, Dooney, and Sterling had a bunch of bodies before the Hot Boys, none of them had any lingering beef. In fact, to this point between Mosquito and Gangsta, they had 12 combined bodies, none of them involving any type of beef. So other than a small and lingering beef between the Magnolia and 10th Ward, the Hot Boys really had nobody to worry about. Instead, they were simply focused on being the hottest thing in New Orleans, getting all the girls and getting all the money. Gangsta, Sterling, Dooney, and Mosquito were rising superstars, but what if I told you that they weren't even the most popular Hot Boy? That introduces us to a young man named James Tapp, commonly known at the time as Magnolia Slim. As the name suggests, Slim was born and raised in the projects, and he was known as a hustler that nobody wanted to mess with. He was a tall and skinny moneymaker, but was ready to go to war over the Hot Boys. However, aside from his street life, Slim was also a very talented rapper. Early on, he would make a name for himself rapping in the projects, but then he would progress to performing at block parties and even high school proms. Then by 1993, Slim was only 16 years old and already the hottest up-and-coming rapper in the city. He started being recognized all over the region and was even booked for his first show. That takes us to November 14th, 1993. It's a huge day for the Hot Boys as Slim is set to perform for the very first time in New Orleans. It's actually a real concert and everyone from the city is flooding in to watch. Obviously, most people are there to support a new local star, but in a city like New Orleans, you'll also have a bunch of haters too. Well, everyone floods into the concert by 10 p.m. and that's when Slim finally hits the stage. As soon as he hits the stage, the 16-year-old star is overwhelmed by cheering fans. It's a huge moment not only for Slim and his family, but also the Hot Boys who were all in the concert. But then out of nowhere, a hater pops up and tries to spoil the performance.
This fool get on the stage and caught himself trying to diss Magnolia Slim. How you diss one of the hottest upcoming rappers in our city? And we deep in here this day.
Little does he know the Hot Boys are all in the concert and are always ready to handle business. As you know, they've eliminated people for much, much less. Well, as soon as they notice him, the Hot Boys rush towards the stage and tell him to get down.
He on the stage, we like, ooh, get the F off the stage, that third wall. He was like, all right, y'all got that, get off the stage.
This right here definitely could have had lethal consequences, but thankfully the Hot Boys allowed him to apologize. The reason that they didn't harm the guy is because they didn't want to ruin Slim's special night. They wanted him to end his concert on a positive note. However, this would not be possible. Just 5 minutes after the hater hopped on stage, another hater tries to ruin the night. While all of the Hot Boys are focused on the concert, a random man walks up to one of their little homies and socks him in the face. The teenager is discombobulated, he looks around for help, and nobody's paying attention. So instead of fighting back, he heads for the exit and waits in the parking lot. He waits there for 20 minutes until the concert ends and all of the Hot Boys come outside. He doesn't tell them what happened out of embarrassment, but someone else does. A friend of Gangsta's from the Calliope walks up to him and tells him what he witnessed somebody do to his younger homie. He also tells him that the little homie didn't fight back and he wants to know what's up with that. Gangsta doesn't believe it, as in his mind there's no way one of his younger homies wouldn't fight back. So he calls him over and asks him one simple question: did you get punched in the face? He tells him yes, and then Gangsta asks him to point out exactly who did it. He points to a man across the parking lot, and Gangsta says nothing and turns around to his homies. He whispers something in their ears, and they all begin walking across the parking lot. So in front of over 100 people, they walk right up to the man and make a horrible decision.
We saw the dude when we got outside. He got killed.
So not even on Slim's big day could the Hot Boys go without doing something reckless. Doing this simply because of a punch and doing it in front of 100 people with no mask is actually crazy. But in New Orleans, this is just a regular occurrence, and the craziest part is that out of all the witnesses, not a single person would talk to police. But regardless of all these people not testifying, this still left a terrible impression for the Hot Boys. If you heard a story like this, you'd want to get out of these people's way by any means. But in New Orleans, this meant that everyone wanted to try them. Like, oh yeah, y'all think y'all are dangerous? Well, watch this. Now it was pretty much like bragging rights. If you were able to do something to a Hot Boy, you were the top dog in New Orleans. So just 1 week after the concert, someone would try the Hot Boys once again, with this time Gangsta being the target. This sounds like a bad idea. It's a late afternoon in the Magnolia Projects and Gangsta is posted on Washington with some things for sale. At 7 p.m., a man that he's never seen before walks up to him and says he wants to buy something. The guy does not look like a user, so Gangsta is skeptical. So naturally, he pauses everything in fear that the man could be an undercover officer. But instead, the situation is even worse. The man quickly whips out a blick and points it at Gangsta. He tells him to give up everything. Mosquito notices what's happening from across the street and instantly sprints over.
Dude pulled out the little gun on me, 38, to rob me. Mosquito just hit him up, hit him. That was one of those situations where he had my back because, as you remember, when we first started out around there, the guy was choking him, trying to take a crack from him. And I shot the guy for him. So it was one of the ways, it was one of them things where my bro had my back.
Finally, Mosquito was able to pay him back for saving him a few years back. Well, even though they handled the situation and eliminated the robber, they were still pissed that anyone would try them. So once they found out who the man was, they decided to return the favor on the robber's friends. Mosquito and Gangsta head over to the block that the robber claimed, the backside of the Calliope Projects.
Right behind, back to what Booker T. Washington. We watching the boy selling. He got his money out counting.
As soon as they see the money, Gangsta and Mosquito hop out and go over to rob him.
Let's run down on him. Man, let me get that. I ain't giving up nothing. Cussing, talking crazy.
The man doesn't want to give anything up and starts talking crazy to the Hot Boys. That's when they turn the 211 to a 187.
Opened fire on him. And still took the money. And took his gun.
The victim wasn't well known and wasn't from the Calliope either, so this thankfully did not start a beef. But regardless, at this point, Mosquito was completely out of control.
Mosquito was just trigger happy. After he had bust that gun that first time, there was no looking back for him. Now that I'm old, I sit back senseless homicides. It wasn't nothing like tied to it. Street like our drugs or this one beefing with this or this was, it was like periodically might go over here, take a hit, or might go over here and rob this person, or this person say something wrong out his mouth. What are we talking? Up your gun, you shoot him. It was one of them situations because once Mosquito got his hand on a gun, it was crazy.
This is how the Hot Boys transition from hustlers that you don't want to mess with to cold gangsters who will rob you, cross you, or eliminate you just because they want to be bad. And with this mentality, they were bound to make everyone in New Orleans their enemy. Nobody likes a thief, and definitely not a thief who will cross their own allies. To this point, thankfully, the whole Third Ward was unified as the Magnolia, Melf, and Calliope could hang out in each other's projects. It was always the Third Ward versus everyone, but then the Hot Boys would somehow ruin everything. So here is the crazy story of how it all starts. In 1994, the biggest kingpin in the Melf had a baby mother who lived in the Magnolia. And because of the Magnolia and Melf's close relationship, he felt safe using his baby mom's apartment as a stash house. These guys are my allies, so I never have to worry about them robbing me, right? Well, this guy was only familiar with the old Magnolia. He didn't know how the new Hot Boys were operating.
One of they big dogs out their project had a baby mother living in our project. He had like 5 kilos hid in her house. He was in college. One of the females out the Magnolia was hanging with her, cool with her, went back and told one of the guys in the know, like, you know, boy, the Melf got there in such and such house? What? They go in there steal a.
Gangsta admittedly had nothing to do with this, but his friend's actions had serious consequences. When the man finds out, he's absolutely pissed, and he wants to know whether his baby mother set him up or if the Magnolia boys did him cold. So the man starts asking around who did it, just to find out that the Hot Boys are bragging about the incident. The man cannot believe it. He tells everyone in the Melf what happened, and they collectively decide that all relations are done with the Magnolia projects. They officially declare a beef with the Magnolia, but more specifically with the Hot Boys.
Now the guys at the Melf, they not soft. They going too, so a war broke out. We were like this. If it's beef, whenever we see you, we're gonna fight, we're gonna make it known we beefing. It wasn't no one-on-ones where we're gonna shoot when we see each other, we did mean mugging and keep going until we get our gun. No, when we see each other, we gonna work.
So now the beef is on. 2 major heavyweights at odds. The Melf versus the Magnolia. Nobody expected this to ever happen. So here's how it initially turns out. From June to November of 1994, the Melphamine Project lost 11 people, and according to the paperwork, Mosquito and Gangsta were responsible for 9 of these. For one project to lose 11 people in under a year is pretty much unheard of. But in a city like New Orleans, this is how serious the beefs can get, especially in 1994. In fact, in 1994, the city of New Orleans saw 424 homicides. This is the second deadliest year ever recorded in American history, just behind East Palo Alto in 1992. This was a time where truly every single day in New Orleans could be your last. Bodies were dropping left and right in the city of New Orleans, and the craziest part is that none of these included a hot boy.
What the hell?
Well, according to Gangsta, there really wasn't a reason for this. They were just getting lucky, I guess. But as you know, in the street life, what goes around also comes around eventually. Unless you move to another city and stay there forever, or you just hide in the house, you will get touched. However, for Gangsta, he would be arrested in early 1995, which may have actually saved his life. He was initially charged with attempted murder, but pled down to assault and was given 1 year in prison. So from April of 1995 to May of 1996, Gangsta was located in WCI prison. The judge decided to sentence him lightly with the hopes that he would change his life around once he got out. But come on, guys. But to his credit and in his defense, when he got out, all he wanted to do was have some fun. And that takes us to June 1st, 1996. It's a huge day in New Orleans as the annual Super Fair takes place in the Superdome. Here, everyone can enjoy fun activities, dress up in fresh gear, and holler at new girls. Typically, large gatherings in New Orleans do not end well, but thankfully this venue has heavy security and metal detectors, so everyone can leave the beef at home. So on this day, Mosquito, Gangsta, and the rest of the Hot Boys roll into the fair with no beef on their minds. However, the beef with the Melf is still strong, but who's going to initiate a beef in this kind of setting? Well, at least that's what the Hot Boys are thinking.
OG Booby Black and myself, we was in the fair. Back then, the Dome, Coca-Cola had a fair in the Dome. The Superdome.
As the Hot Boys are mobbing through the fair, they notice a crew of guys from the Melf. The Melf approach them quickly and seemingly want to fight, so the two sides clash in the middle of the fair and they start throwing hands. Little do the Hot Boys know the Melf were able to grab knives off of a booth at the fair, so while they're trying to throw hands, the Melf start poking them up. First, Mosquito gets hit in the shoulder and instantly runs away to safety.
Now me and Lil Cornell fighting at the Melf. He got his head down, so I don't know, he got a little steak knife in the fair. He hits me in my chest, right up under here. I say, oh, he got a knife. Now his feet don't feel me nothing. I got to go now. I got to bail up out of here. He boy got a weapon.
So Gangsta runs for his life and is able to reunite with his friends, and that's when he notices something crucial.
There was a red stain on my yellow shirt, so I raised my shirt up and it's making noise, doing like that. So I'm like, oh. So the girl's like, ah. So I fell down. So I want the attention, right? They called the ambulance. I should have never did that because they charged me for getting an ambulance just to go right up the block to Charity Hospital.
Gangsta is able to make it to the hospital in time, where the doctors are able to stop his wound and stitch up his lungs.
But my lungs had collapsed, so they gave me like 30-something staples down my stomach.
He thankfully survived this scary incident, but this right here was what brought him right back into stepping after his prison sentence. He now knew that the Melf were determined to get him gone, so he needed to move accordingly. And now we're 2 weeks after the fair, June 15th, 1996. It's a Saturday afternoon and Gangsta and the Hot Boys are across the river, ducking low, seeing what they're gonna do for the night.
It's so rainy, where it's like, it finished raining, I mean. You know, I'd be still looking kind of dark, the streets so bad. I wanted to go in and kill the females we knew. But some of my homeboys didn't have no girls, so all of them didn't want to go because they didn't have a girl back then. So it was like, man, we're going back to the project. I was outvoted because I was riding in the car with them. Go back in the project.
So he's driven back to the Magnolia and they're all outside posted with nothing to do. As they're hanging out on the block, an ice cream truck pulls up and a girl asks Mosquito for a quarter. So Mosquito hands her a quarter to get the ice cream, and for whatever reason, this makes Terrance really, really mad.
She asked Mosquito for a quarter, he give her a quarter to get out. I said, you gonna give her a quarter? I said, when them boys, the Melf come back here, I'm the one gotta go to war with you. And you give her a quarter, and you and him fussing about his money.
Gangsta was already upset that his boys didn't want to go to Kenner, and now this makes him even more mad. But then out of nowhere, something completely changes his mood.
Old side of the project from my gun. It gets dark when the bus finally come. She get on the bus and I'm walking back up Washington Avenue. I see a man, like, you know how somebody walk past and they kind of scare me, run out to the street every light. I walked up a few more steps. That's when I hear, gangsta, gangsta. Instead of me looking across the street where the voice coming from, because there's a guy by the store. He's calling me. He trying to hurt me that there's a guy behind me that have a gun. Gangsta, gangsta. I look back. It's a husky guy with a hat and a mask running toward me with a 40. Now, mind you, I had the staples in my stomach, so I gotta go. I gotta go. Boom, 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 boom. He started to hit. I turned around and looked up at him. Because in my mind, I got to get up. If I don't get up, he's going to dog me on this ground. Before I jump up, he shot again and fired me. So I jump up. Look at that. He looking at me. We looking eye to eye. But I can't really make out who he is because he got a handkerchief here, got the hat down, but he's kind of heavy set. And I run in the alley, he run off.
He then tries to flag down anyone who can help and bring him to the hospital.
When I go in the alley, I go back there by this light-skinned guy, older guy. I say, hey, I said, man, let me in. Somebody just shot Mel. Let me know. He looked. I ain't crazy. You come back here to kill me. He take out running because he's a crackhead. He's spooky. He heard the shot, so he thinking I'm coming to do him. I said, man, that's crazy. I laugh a little bit. I go to this other house. The man let me in the house. I sat on a chair. That's when Mosquito, Big G, come running back. Gangsta, gang, wait. I said, man, here. I got up. As soon as I got up, I put my arms around Mosquito and Big G. All from my waist on down, just went dead.
Gangsta is rushed to the hospital and things are not looking good. The ambulance makes it to Charity Hospital and doctors try to perform miracle surgery. While they're trying to save him, all of his friends are gathered around in the waiting room. They assume that he probably won't make it, and because of this, they want instant revenge. So without any investigation, they collectively decide that it must have been the MILF, and they want to get back at them right away. So directly from the hospital, the Hot Boys hop in 2 cars and head over to the MILF. They're so angry and hellbent on revenge that they can't even think logically. So as soon as they arrive to the rival projects, they start unleashing at anyone outside. During the incident, a couple guys from the MILF get injured and they're rushed to the same Charity hospital. So now with both Gangsta and guys from the MILF in surgery, both projects are waiting in the waiting room.
The guys out the MILF, they're in the hospital. They come to the hospital to see their people. OG Booby Black Kid is still in the hospital, so if they leaving to go do something, go to the elevator, they come in, get off the elevator, they meet up, they up guns in the hospital. And now they're in the hospital, they meet up, and now guns are drawn. My mother come out, yo, stop, they put them on. Calm down.
This could have been really ugly, but thankfully both sides are able to calm down and they begin to talk it out. The MILF explained that they didn't even know that something had happened to Gangsta, and of course that they had nothing to do with it. Of course, due to the beef, the Hot Boys are not so certain, but the only way to know is to wait for Gangsta to survive the surgery. So in the meantime, everyone is waiting in the hospital for Gangsta to come out and to tell them who did it. Finally, he makes it out of the surgery and he tells the Hot Boys that it wasn't the MILF who did it. He tells them that he doesn't know exactly who it was, but it definitely was not somebody he recognizes from the MILF. Now the major question remains, who did this to Gangsta Williams? So while he's recovering in the hospital, the Hot Boys are roaming around the city trying to figure out who did this. And finally, when Gangsta is released back to the projects, his boys tell him who they think was responsible. The attack actually did not come from rivals. In fact, we believe that somebody within our own projects wanted you gone. So now an internal beef broke out in the Magnolia, the Hot Boys versus everyone else.
I left, went home. I got my tub, my mother cleaned me up. She was putting a bandage on me. I hurt. I said, oh, mama, that sounded like that Mac. Booby getting off on somebody. All the while that AK was getting off on him. Booby, that's when he lost his arm. One people, Kevin Gates right now, he got the one arm. In that walk we had going on in the project, we beefed with one another. This was the in-house beef. So you got us running around in the courtyards with AKs, Mac 9 and hallway out looking and...
So now, not only were the Hot Boys at war with the MILF, but they were at war with the clique in their own project. This is a sticky situation, and because of this, they must watch their backs at all times. They have to watch out for rivals, and now their own project. How crazy is that? So because of this predicament, Gangsta and the Hot Boys started hanging out in other projects that they got along with. And that fast forwards us a month to mid-July of 1996.
This particular morning, it was another day where it looked a little muggy, but then it was during the summertime because Sterling was sitting on the porch in the project chilling. And when I pulled up, I was like, I said, yo, wanna go on Canal Street, get some tennis shoes or something? He's like, yeah, I ain't doing nothing, jump in the car with me. Canal Street, let's go ahead and go to the Iberville project. We go to the Iberville project. We left our guns in the Magnolia because we was leaving from there to go to Canal Street, get some shoes, tennis shoes, and go back.
At this time, the Magnolia and Iberville are close allies, so Gangsta thinks that it's a comfortable place to be. So Gangsta and Sterling are in the middle of the project talking to their biggest dog named Mumsy. And that's when a girl starts to alert them.
So as we talking, this guy come, putting a handkerchief around his face. She said, y'all better run, that boy got a gun. So I'm looking at Mumsy, looking at Sterling like, who is this fool? Because we back here by you. It's your project. What's up? Now you reaching. Oh, it's time to go. We take out running. Hit a shot. Hit him all in the back of his head.
Sterling is critically hit, so Gangsta runs over to the police station to flag them down.
I run through the cut, I run across the street. They got a police station over there. Flag the police down. Hey, can you give me a ride back in the project? I think my friend got shot. Right where we ran at. The girl, the same girl I said I want to give a ride to, she's holding him in her arms.
Sadly, Sterling does not make it. Gangsta is absolutely destroyed.
That's when I just started crying. So people at the Magnolia got word for it. They come uptown. Some people was already back there. Gangsta, don't cry, they want to see you. I said, no, they need to see this here because they're going to feel my pain later. They're going to feel my pain later.
Through all of the beef and drama, Gangsta never expected a hot boy to die, especially not on a day like this where they're hanging out in a friendly project. So quickly, his pain turns into anger, and him and the hot boys are completely against the Iberville project.
Sterling dies. We thinking it's the Iberville.
So sadly, the hot boys start sliding on the Iberville without even knowing that it was them who did it.
So, going back there, dress up like a woman. 4 of us go back there. Killer Stone, his brother, me. Taylor Hank, cousin, Cup, George Hank. We go back there. I'm dressed like I got the gun on with my arm, though. I see one of the guys come from around the building. I pull a gun jam. He shoot his gun jam. The other 2, their guns jam. And now his number high power rifles coming at us. I said, whoa. We run back, jump in the car, we got away. Man, we almost got killed back there. We had 4 guns and only 4 shots get off. The rest, about 100 shots at us. We got away. They didn't even hit the car. That's not a thing about it. So anyway, we make it out of there. So now we thinking that we beefing with the Iberville downtown.
So now on top of the beef with the Melf and the inner beef in the projects, they now want to go to war with the Iberville. This was dangerous news for the Iberville, even though they really hadn't done anything. The Hot Boys wanted a ton of revenge for the loss of Sterling. They were not going to stop. But then, before they could do any damage to the Iberville, somebody would come forward and confess.
So one day I'm riding in Lexus. Going, so this red truck around it followed me. I'm turning on Phillip, it follows me. I turn on Willa, it follows me. I get ready to turn on first. So you know when you get ready to turn like this, how you can see a person? When you turn your car, you can see behind you. He said, yo, I said, you. And such and such, I'm the one. I said, oh, you won't kill Sterling? Yeah.
As crazy as it sounds, the random man confesses to Gangsta that he's the one who stepped on Sterling.
That's what that's behind. He said, man, he tried to lie. Oh, he stepped on my arm and shoe in the beach. I said, you killed my boy behind that? He said, yeah. He said, man, I want to talk. I want to holler at you though.
The man from the Melf does not want beef with the Hot Boys and definitely not with Gangsta, so he wants to simply just talk it out. But Gangsta and the Hot Boys, they were not going to let this slide. Regardless though, in order to throw the guy off, Gangsta agrees to have a meeting.
So what you want to talk at? You know I'm a stone killer. You gonna pull up, they gonna talk to me and let me know you the one who killed my best friend? Come on, man, for real? So I said, he crazy, he vulnerable. So me and Habizo make a bet who gonna kill this guy first. So one day, I never go meet him. Because I know he's vulnerable, he wanna talk, he just, something wrong with him, he naive.
For whatever reason, Gangsta doesn't want to do it himself, so he has 2 other Hot Boys set it up.
I give Blabber my call, they go in the Melf, see the clown on the payphone, open fire on him, he get away.
The guy who downed Sterling somehow gets away, and he decides to call the police. On top of this, he even tells them exactly who did it. And because of this, one of the prominent Hot Boys is arrested for attempted murder.
Tell the police how I get charged with that shoot.
This guy from the Melf is cold. He downed Sterling, and then he told on the guys who targeted him. Well, the worst part about it is that this occurred before Sterling's funeral, so 2 of the Hot Boys didn't even get to go. And now that takes us to the big day, Sterling's funeral. It's a somber day for the Magnolia as one of their most beloved members is being laid to rest. Well, because all the Hot Boys are there, and of course the beef, NOPD warns everyone at the funeral that there might be a drive-by.
The police say it's a possibility it's about to be a drive-by. It's a possibility, man.
Because of this, everyone at the funeral is on edge, looking over their shoulders and awaiting loud noises. Then a girl at the back of the funeral home thinks she heard a shot and she yells,
"Drive by!" Everybody running, start screaming, howling, knocking the flowers over. They running all around the funeral. They knocked the man grandma off her chair. She fell down. So I'm like, man, what's wrong? Y'all tripping. So I get up, because me and I had Sterling dressed, was dressed alike. I get up, lean over in the coffin, hug my boy. My brother, everybody pull out their guns, so they standing in front. Me, while I'm holding Sterling, they stand out.
So everyone runs outside while Gangsta and the Hot Boys remain by the casket. But then, for whatever reason, Mosquito sprints outside with some other intentions.
Mosquito gets the bright idea, well, I want to get in a gunfight. He run out the back of the funeral and come around. He run out and come around and to face whoever brought the shoot the funeral home. He run into the police. Go to jail for the gun.
So now, not only is the funeral interrupted, but Mosquito is also taken off to jail. A felon in possession, not good news.
Now, mind you, Sterling dead. Dooney is in jail now. Dooney in jail, one of the original Hot Boy. He in jail. So that just leave me and Mosquito out on the streets. But Mosquito get caught with the gun, so he go to jail for the gun. So I'm just the only one out on the streets.
So now it's Gangsta by himself in the Magnolia. All of his friends are either deceased or now locked up. On top of this, Mosquito gets a huge sentence for his minimal crime.
He gets 7 years for the gun. He got to go to magistrate court. They release him from jail. Make a mistake.
Somehow the court accidentally releases Mosquito, only in Louisiana. Obviously, this is exciting news for Mosquito, but he knows that he'll eventually be called back to prison. So instead of going back to his registered address, he decides to stay with his sister in the Callio Project.
So now he's hiding out in the Callio Project because he has a sister that lives in the Callio Project.
At this time, the Calliope and Magnolia are very close allies, so much so that Magnolia Slim actually signed with Master P. So given the project's close relationship, Mosquito figures that this is the safest place to hide out. But little does he know, it's actually the worst place he could possibly be. Coincidentally, right after Mosquito moves into the projects, somebody robs their biggest plug. The Calliope has no idea who did it, but based on their reputation, they assume that it was Gangsta and Mosquito.
Somebody get robbed in the Callio Project, they thinking it's us. But it wasn't us for real, so...
At this time, the Calliope was run by a guy named Randall Watts, a serious hustler that you definitely do not want to mess with. While Randall and Gangsta actually used to run together a few years back, and they maintained a really close friendship. So given this, you'd assume that right after the Calliope was robbed, Randall would hit up Gangsta and see if it was him who did it. Instead, they simply come to the conclusion that it was the Hot Boys and that they need to retaliate.
So he think that's a safe spot because we was cool with the Callio. So he think it's a safe spot to hang out at. But all the while, they thought that it was him and I that did the robbery in their project, which made them be like, okay, well, we gonna murder him back here for disrespecting us like that. Callio like to say if you violate them, they gonna strike back. No matter what, if you violate them some kind of way, they're gonna strike back.
October 25th, 1996. Gangsta's at home chilling in the Magnolia Projects when Mosquito swings by. Gangsta can tell that something is up with Mosquito, so he decides to ask him if he's okay. Then Mosquito tells him that his baby mother got into an argument with somebody in Gertown and that he might need his help. So Gangsta immediately volunteers to go over there with Mosquito to mediate the situation. So Gangsta hops in Mosquito's car and they head over to Gertown. Long story short, Gangsta and Mosquito are able to mediate the situation and Mosquito heads back to the projects to drop off Gangsta. Gangsta then hops in the shower to get fresh, and then when he hops out, he has a bunch of missed calls. For whatever reason, somebody keeps calling him and he finally decides to pick up. This is when he receives shocking and devastating news. He's informed that Mosquito was killed in the Calliope while walking to his sister's house. Gangsta does not believe it for a second, as he says, he literally just dropped me off. So he instantly puts some clothes on and rushes over to the Calliope. And when he gets there, he sees something that he never imagined he would see. When he arrives to the Calliope, he sees Mosquito laid out with the coroner. Complete disbelief. How in the world did this happen in the Calliope? There's no possible way that under the watch of Randall Watts that this could happen to Mosquito. Mosquito's passing hit Gangsta harder than any other because this was really his real day one. Well, once the sadness turned into anger, he needed to figure out who was responsible. And a few days later, he gets confirmation that the Calliope was actually responsible. Now with Mosquito gone, Sterling gone, and Hot Bezo and George in jail, Gangsta and Dooney are the only hot boys left on the streets. So given this, going to battle with the big and bad Calliope projects is definitely a daunting task. However, when your name is Gangsta Williams, you're willing to get revenge at any cost. He felt like the Calliope did this to his friend for absolutely no reason. Even if you thought that we robbed you, Randall could have at least checked in to see if it was true. That was the bare minimum. So because of this, Gangsta went full force against the Calliope projects. In fact, between November 1st of 96 and New Year's, the Calliope lost 5 members. 3rd Ward New Orleans was at each other's necks like never before, the Magnolia versus both the Calliope and the Melf. Absolute chaos and mayhem every single day, I kid you not. But believe it or not, in the midst of all this, there was also some positive aspects. At this exact time, both sides were making major strides in music, especially with Birdman's Cash Money Records. With artists like Lil Wayne, BG, Juvenile, and Turk, New Orleans was about to be on fire. Birdman had the genius vision to combine them as a group, except all he needed was a name. So he decided to ask his little brother Gangsta for input, and here's how it would go.
When the Hot Boys, the rap group come out, Hot Boys, and Baby was like, man, I need a name for my group. We ride on the bus, taking about 30 minutes. I said, name the Hot Boys. He said, yes, I like that, but what it mean? I mean, you look good, you dress nice, you got jewelry, you got girls, call, murders, you a hot boy.
So this is how the Hot Boys started, and they instantly caught fire. So essentially, as the Hot Boys street crew was fading away, the Hot Boys rappers were off and running. And for the Calliope side, well, Master P had recently returned from Richmond, California, and he started developing artists. In particular, he focused on his artist Soulja Slim, who was previously known as Magnolia Slim. So obviously, with Slim signed to the now rival side, things could potentially get tricky. However, both sides decided to separate business from the streets, and they allowed each other to thrive on their own, meaning that just because Slim was signed to the now rival side did not mean he was a knob. This is mostly because Master P's cousin Randall Watts personally informed Gangsta that he was not the one who called the hit on Mosquito. He told him that neither he or Master P had beef with the Magnolia, and in fact that it was another clique in the Calliope that did it.
Randall was the man, the colonel, the big dog back there. Whatever he said, he listened, he moved. When Mosquito got killed, Randall come into Magnolia and talked to me. He was like, listen, I don't have nothing to do with that. He said, you my boy and my people back there, so I ain't gonna get that. I said, nah, that's cool. Because I know how powerful they were back there. I know they gonna ride together.
So even though Cash Money and No Limit were on rival sides, they pretty much would leave each other alone. But then in the summer of 1997, a major event would potentially jeopardize this. June 6, 1997. It's a sunny, hot day in New Orleans, and Randall is hanging out in the Calliope courtyard. The courtyard happens to be located right across from the police station, so it's the safest place to be amidst the beef. So Randall is hanging out and chopping game with his friends without knowing that somebody's out looking for him. Out of nowhere, somebody comes creeping through the buildings with bad intentions, and then they walk right up to Randall. This is a huge moment, as Randall was always seen as untouchable. He was rich, powerful, and most importantly, Gangsta had decided to leave him out of the beef. Everyone assumed that it was Gangsta who did it, including Master P. He automatically assumed that Gangsta had broken the agreement and slumped his cousin. This was bad news, but little did he know, Gangsta literally had nothing to do with it. In fact, he had something much more important going on that same exact day.
June 6th, my daughter, Tasia, was born. I get a beat. Man, Randall just got killed. What? Called back to the payphone. And it just killed Slim. I said, man, no, I don't believe that. That shook me and the Calliope because nobody didn't believe where Randall got killed at. The person didn't have enough heart to come because the police station right here and he got killed at right here. Bar, Rose Tavern sat right across the street. So it was like, who did that? Fingers pointed at me.
Gangsta was wrongly blamed, and he could easily prove that it wasn't him. However, because of his silly pride as a gangster, he felt like dispelling the rumors would make him look soft.
Back then, I'm like, I'm not about to go explain myself to these guys because we are at war, But I had proof where I was at that night. I was at Two-Road Hospital when my daughter was being born that same day.
Well, not only did Gangsta not do it, but he was actually hurt by Rando's loss, despite their sides being at odds. Even throughout the Magnolia and Callio beef, Randall and Gangsta stayed in contact.
Matter of fact, when me and Randall was hanging together, I was supposed to be in the movie Bout It movie. But when the beef jumped off and they put the Callio in us, I was like, oh no, I can't go, I ain't gonna be in the movie now. That's over with, But me and Randall was still talk because me and Randall used to run together. So it's like, that's my people, it's family over here, but me and you tight, you my boy, so I'm not gonna get it.
It really made no sense that Gangsta would do this, but because he didn't dispel the rumors, Master P allegedly wanted him gone.
First rumor was P had 15,000 on my head. Then it went to 30,000 on my head. Then it went to 100,000. So I told P, because I said, you tell P if I catch him in the city, we're gonna hold court. I'm trying to see him. I'm gonna bust him up. So P was like, man, I want to talk. I need to meet with him. I want to talk with him. I was like, no, I ain't want to talk. Because I was like, he might be too powerful. He got money now. He might have the police, anybody pull up and get me, handcuff me. Because they was doing that down my way. Get the police, pull you over, think you going to jail for a traffic ticket. They handcuff you, bring you to your enemy. And now you're getting slumped. So I didn't want to meet with him. But he did a song. I got family here, talking like that. Then he did a Fed. The reason why I speak on this now, because he did a Fed magazine interview. He said, they was pointing the finger at Gangsta, saying Gangsta killed my cousin, but he found out later Gangsta had nothing to do with that. And me and him had a run-in in the park. I didn't know him, he didn't know me. This come out, P Mouth is in the Fed magazine. He did an article speaking on me about the situation. So that's why I talk about it now, because he brought it up.
As Gangsta tells it, the truth would eventually come out and Master P would thankfully clear his name.
So it happened, they was beefing with that 7th ward. And I'm not gonna call no names who I think did or whatever, but later on we would find out where it came from. It came from the 7th ward.
Well, even though Master P backed off of Gangsta, the Callio projects did not agree with him. In fact, Gangsta and his people were the #1 target of the Callio projects. Well, of course, Gangsta knew this, so whenever he wanted to get away from the street life, he would go down to the Greyhound station, literally pick a city on the board, and hop on the bus.
I always was like, man, I'm beefing. No telling when I'm gonna go to jail, so I want to go and travel a little bit. This particular time, I wound up with my one of my brothers, Muslim brother named Blue from the 9th ward, and we brought my homegirl out there with us. So I was in Des Moines, Iowa.
Of all places, Gangsta chose the random Des Moines, Iowa to go. So he, his homeboy, and his homegirl hopped on the bus for a long, long ride. All they want to do is get away from the hellhole of New Orleans and to have a fun, relaxing time. So 20 hours later, they finally arrive in Des Moines and they wander around looking for things to do.
It's a shopping center like with a club. So I got my beep as I'm about to, this club is packed. I'm like, oh, it's going down in there. So as I'm in line, I'm in this long line, I finally get to the door. When I make it inside the club, before I could pay my money, my beeper goes off. 911. Well, I step out of line, get my prime code phone, call, what's up? Oh, I heard your mother's car got shot up. What? Yeah, so call my mother. I hear her walking. I said, Mom, where your car at? Oh, it's outside. I said, it ain't outside. I had the neighbors that look. Oh, Shedrick in it. I said, no, you ain't gonna let him drive because he don't put gas in your car, Mom. I said, look, Mom, I heard the car got shot up. Boy, I'm okay, still here. You okay? What happened? The bullet hit me. What?
As soon as Gangsta gets that confirmation, he hops out of line and heads right to the Greyhound station. There, he waits for the next bus back to New Orleans.
Bro, we gotta go. I get on the Greyhound. So as I'm thinking, I'm like, when I get back to New Orleans, I'm gonna kill grandmothers and where everybody people live. So I'm going crazy when I get back. What happened was, they found out where I put my people house downtown. And the car was in the driveway. My mother was sitting in the back seat. So when they pulled up to hit my little brother and his friend, they opened fire, they hit the ground. The bullet went to the trunk, went to the back seat, and hit my mother back here. So on my way riding on that bus, I'm like, I'm going to murder everybody. But as I'm riding, it take like a day. out of there, get home, I start thinking like, no, you gotta be more strategic, because if you go and start killing people, they waiting on this. You don't wanna get the death penalty going to Angola. So you gotta move right. And when I got there, they sent word, tell Gangsta, we wasn't trying to hit his mother, but we was trying to kill his little brother. It's like, okay, cool, that's respect, that's part of the game, okay, cool. But the main one wound up going to the feds. I never, all the rest of them was little peons, really.
So Gangsta thankfully decides to play it smart after learning that his mother was in fact not the target. On top of this, he would learn that the people who did it were arrested not too long after. By this time, the beef had pretty much slowed down. His boys were pretty much all gone, and on top of this, age was bringing maturity. Not to mention that with the growth of Cash Money, Gangsta was now being exposed to life on the road. So now instead of taking random Greyhounds, he started going on tour with the Hot Boys. Needless to say, things were looking better for Gangsta. But then out of nowhere, an unexpected internal affair would potentially bring Gangsta back to the streets. So let me explain. The Hot Boys were not the only popular group coming out of the Magnolia. In fact, Cash Money had a group called UNLV who had a hit song called Drag 'Em by the River. Well, after their song blew up and they started getting recognition, UNLV wanted more money from Birdman. Birdman wasn't going for it as his main focus was the Hot Boys, and this is where tensions arose.
Yellow Boy had that, he that Dragon from the River had that hot song bumping. They got the city on lock, uptown thing, this, they want more money. Birdman stubborn, they acting, trying to sign again, they mad.
So UNLV and Cash Money meet up, and this is when things go bad.
Meet up, Yellow and Birdman gets into a fight. Slim go to break it up. Tech 9, who's with the Yellow Boy group, thought that Slim was about to jump in, and he stole off on Slim.
When Gangsta finds out, he's livid that somebody would put their hands on his big brother, and of course, he's eager to do something about it.
Like I said, I wasn't gonna trip off it, but when I heard Tech had put his hand on Slim, I went riding around there looking for him.
Just like that, Gangsta is back to his old ways, and now it's internal beef in the Magnolia. But thankfully, Gangsta is unable to find the guy who put his hands on his brother.
I didn't see Tech. That's a good thing too.
Nobody wins when the family's beefing, so thankfully he doesn't catch him and the tensions ease up. But then out of nowhere, tragedy strikes. On April 5th, 1997, UNLV rapper Yellow Boy is found deceased in New Orleans. Of course, instantly Gangsta is blamed, and even to this day, people believe he did it. However, he has proof that neither him nor Cash Money had anything to do with it.
So from there, the day Yellow Boy was killed, Birdman, Slim, myself, Wayne, PG, Turk, Juvie, a few more people, we out in Lafayette at a concert. The night Yellow Boy was killed, we was all in Lafayette at a little regular motel. It was like a little motel, not a hotel, them little motel, like apartment complexes. It was that. So that's when they went to spread all these rumors, oh baby, this baby. Man, we was all in Lafayette. So they got the proof, because they had the book stuff and paper stuff back then. So they got the proof on all that stuff back then. That's why the feds or the police never went, picked this man up in no investigation or that, because they knew exactly where he was back then.
But still, the loss of Yellow Boy was a major loss to New Orleans. He was a big up-and-coming rapper, and who knows where his career could have gone. Well, the story moves on to 1998, and at this point, Gangsta really doesn't want to be in the streets. He's now 23 years old, and life on the road with the Hot Boys is much better than life in the projects. So at this point, he hasn't left the city, but he definitely has plans to do so. He survived all of these wild years of beefing without dying, and without ever getting serious prison time. There were so many incidents in this story where things could have gone wrong, and Gangsta is just happy to have survived it all. But little does he know, the feds have been investigating him for months on end. And that takes us to March 6, 1998.
That night, I had 3 houses I would sleep at, either in the project, either in the 17th ward or the 13th ward. This night I was undecided, so I was in the project. I wanted some cinnamon rolls. I asked my brother, bro, you feel like going to Tasty Donut and get me some cinnamon rolls? Yeah, I go. He goes to get the cinnamon rolls. I go in my mother's room, I just sit on the edge of her bed and I just lay down like with the foot on the floor and the lay in her bed. My brother took a while, fell asleep. Then I kicked my shoes off, jumped up there to bed with my mother. I get up around 5, 7 in the morning, I reach down in the bag, I bit off the cinnamon roll. So when I put it down, boom, 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 knocking on the door, loud. FBI, is Gangsta here? I look out the window, I see like 25 of them coming with shields and guns. And I say,
Gangsta is taken to jail with no idea in his head what he could possibly be arrested for. When he gets there, they show him his charges, and he doesn't even know what they mean.
I got locked up for continuing criminal enterprise, which is an 848, a kingpin charge. Mind you, you gotta have hundreds of kilos, 12 million in 10 months, all this stuff. I wasn't a kingpin, I didn't have workers. But they put that charge on me because they wanted to figure I was young. They was going I was one of the youngest ones to be charged with that charge.
Essentially, they threw a major charge at Gangsta, hoping that he would tell on the whole Cash Money enterprise. The feds didn't really care about Gangsta or anything he had ever done. They just wanted to use him to take down Cash Money.
But they put the kingpin status on me because they wanted me to tell on some stories on Cash Money or whatever they thought I could come up with to bring down Cash Money. Because it was rumored that I invested in Cash Money. It was rumored that I'm the one who was behind Cash Money. And that wasn't true, but it was in my paperwork. So when I pled guilty to my factual basis, all this is public records. They waived it. They didn't throw the statement out. They waived it. Because they thought that later on, if I wanted to cooperate, that I come back and say, yeah, I invested in Cash Money. Yeah, I took a hit for this one. Yeah, I took a hit for that one. Yeah, I did it. They thought I would come back. They thought it was going to break me with the Cash Money. I was like, no, I'm not. This family, they take care of me. I don't know. I'm going to lay down, you know?
With no evidence, this is kind of strange. It's almost like Gangsta was a scapegoat. Like, of all people, why did they choose him to throw the charges on? Well, he kind of says that it's because he had money in the safe, but I don't know. You guys tell me what you think.
Yes, I had $375,000 in a safe at grandma's house. Baby had thousands of dollars for me that I would just leave on the bus. So that's how the rumor started. I owned Cash Money, or I invested in Cash Money, because when we would hustle, go on tour, I would leave money.
Well, even though the charges were bogus, fighting a case in federal court is really, really hard. As DJ Vladimir tends to say, the feds have a 97% conviction rate. Well, Gangsta fought this case for months and months and months, but the feds were definitely playing hardball. They were only willing to let him free if he would give up information on Cash Money. Gangsta refused to cooperate, and because of this, he was handed down a 20-year prison sentence. This was the end of his life in the streets, but definitely not the end of his story. While he was in federal prison, Gangsta was able to observe Cash Money get mainstream success and to become superstars. The Hot Boys went platinum while he was sitting in a prison cell. Someone in his position could easily be salty. But thankfully, Gangsta really wasn't jealous. Instead, he was just proud of his family, and he was happy that they were sending him money.
That's my family. I'm happy because at this time, we used to get the envelopes. Like, we didn't have MoneyGram, Instagram, none of that. We had JP. We had your people had to send a money order or a check to the jail. So at this time, I'm getting checks stamped with Cash Money on it. So long as I see them on TV, a video, a hot song, I know I'm going to commissary. I know I'm going to be able to take care of my children, because if they get money, I'm going to get money. One thing I will say, bro, Birdman and Slim had an open book for me. I would call their accountant in New York. Hey, I need 5,000. Hey, I need 20,000. At first, he's like, Brian, Terrance called. Yeah, send it to him. He got with Slim. Slim got tired of her saying Terrance called. He's like, look, whatever he called, give it to him. So when Baby went to Slim to talk to him about my money, Slim said, I already told her whatever he asked for, just give it to him. They were all right. So I was never told no. I didn't know what no mean for them guys.
So as much as someone can be, Gangsta was happy in prison. He had 20 years to go, and he knew he was gonna get out at 43. He was essentially counting his days until he would be freed because he knew that his family would have him set up. Obviously, he wasn't thrilled about being in prison, but there was definitely light at the end of the tunnel. But then, just months into his sentence, the worst possible news would come.
Alfred, first I pled guilty to 20 years. While I waited to get sentenced, a guy come up under my co-defendant, wore wire in the jail. My co-defendant with the bragging about homicides because I got the lead of the case. He put me in it. The feds say by the preponderance, or the judge said by the preponderance of the evidence, because you the lead of the case, you talked about this same gun he's talking about on wiretap, I'm gonna give you a life sentence. Gave my co-defendant 40 years. The judge said at the sentencing hearing, I believe they were your guns, I believe you orchestrated them, Mr. Dyer. But he still gave me life. Our case got overturned because we never charged and indicted for the murders. But guess what? He go to court first, he takes 80 months off his sentence and give him 400 months. I go to court, he give me life again. Kept giving me a life sentence. He gave me life twice. And you said at the court that I realized was about these old murders. They want me to, they say you changed your life, come forward, tell us what happened with these murders, why did they occur, so we could close the book on this, and then we'll give you play. All my stuff is public records, man. They kept denying my most. They would grant my co-defendant, but they would deny me.
So now Gangsta is stuck with life in prison, all because his snitch wore a wire and because his co-defendant pillow talked his way into telling some murders. All hopes of being free are completely gone. His dreams of relaxing with his family in a mansion are all gone for life. Then, just months after this, he would receive some horrible news. After the loss of Sterling and Mosquito and Gangsta getting life in prison, all that was left of the Hot Boys was Dooney. For whatever reason, Dooney could not let go of the streets even though his brothers were gone. Essentially, he started his own crew called the Dooney Boys, which would be the next generation of the Magnolia Projects.
I'm on the phone with Dooney. I said, bro, this time I'm changing my life. I said, man, why are you still in that project? He's be like, nah, love, it ain't like that, love. I said, Dooney, do you feel that you got a point to prove to these little boys? He said, yeah, love, I ain't gonna lie. I said, bro, stop hanging back. I said, bro, them people gonna give you a CCE. Cause he had all the little young boys who didn't have nothing, who would just like throw it away. Dooney grabbed them. Not all of them want to throw it away. Let me straighten that out. Cause I know they're gonna, man, I wouldn't, I'm up. So all of them want to throw it away. He had a few of them that didn't have nothing. Dooney grabbed them all up. Put them on, gave them dope, sell, hustle, and they started getting to eat. So our homegirls out the Magnolia, they always come up with nicknames. They start calling them the Dooney Boys. Oh, you a Dooney boy? Then they broke it down to the DBs. That's how that name come about, the Dooney, the famous name, the Dooney Boys, the DBs. That's where that come from, because Dooney took all of the youngsters, 13 years old, 14 years old, and had them all together and gave them drugs to sell, where they could feed themselves, clothe themselves, and they would be around him all the time. But I said, Dooney, he sent me a picture of a bunch of little young boys with stuff hanging out their shirt. I said, boy, you're gonna get a CCE.
After getting his own kingpin charge, Gangsta was warning Dooney to not make the same mistakes. Get out of the streets because you're either gonna go to jail or you're gonna end up dead. And sadly, one of these would come true.
So what happened, Dooney got killed. This is how Dooney get killed. It's a dude that live in this courtyard where they selling. This guy was born and raised here. But Dooney tells him you can't sell here. How you gonna tell a man that's born and raised in this courtyard he can't sell drugs here? This man born and raised in is a shop jumping, you gonna say you can't sell here? Come on. The little boy was scared of him. Dooney had a bottle one day. Like he gonna throw it and let the dude moving. So one of my people, a female, she said, you gonna bring a bottle to a gunfight? That little boy don't play with, that boy scared of me. The next day, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that little boy come around there and shot down the courtyard, hit Dooney in the side. Killer Stone came, they go upstairs, they say their prayers. I had just got the phone with Dooney, they say their prayers. Dooney got him Ambulance died of internal bleeding. One bullet to the side.
When Gangsta received the news in prison, he was crushed.
Crushed me, man. But here's the thing. I was just going with my, like, I don't live this life anymore. I want to change. I'm studying my religion. I called this older lady where the DB used to hang at. She said, some of the Dooney boys over here, they waiting to hear your call. Some of the Dooney boys over there waiting to hear your call. I say, what you mean they waiting to hear my call? They want to know what you want them to do. I said, well, tell them I don't want them to do nothing, because first of all, I'm on this federal phone, being monitored. Secondly, I already got solicited to commit murder when I told my co-defendant we were gonna kill something. We ain't doing nothing. I said, tell them stand down, don't do nothing. I just left it alone, you know what I'm saying? Because I already had 20 years for solicited to commit murder. What I look like coming and telling these young boys, y'all go retaliate. Y'all know what y'all need to do. This y'all pa, this y'all daddy. He took care of y'all. Y'all gonna wait on me. And after that really was like, wow. I was with Sterling when he got killed. Mosquito had just left me when he got killed, and I just got the phone with Dooney when he got killed. I was connected to all three of them at some type of way, and that gave me like you live by the gun, you die by the gun. God just took me, put me in jail so I could be here now to tell the story.
With the passing of Dooney, this was officially the end of the Hot Boy era. Well, even though the Hot Boys were done, sadly, a new generation would pop up in the Magnolia Projects. The Dooney Boys, also known as the DBs, would be just as bad, if not worse, as the Hot Boys. But by this time, Gangsta had completely changed his life and wanted nothing to do with the streets of New Orleans.
So I said, I'm just gonna leave it all alone and just let it be. And that's just the choice I made.
So now with his new image on life, Gangsta has a lot of game to give and he can put things in perspective.
I've never regretted nothing in my life, no. There's nothing I would change. People, if you could do one, no. That's why I can say I don't regret, because everybody who I did delete was in the game, was in the streets. And yeah, I don't have a right to say, okay, I could take this person like this, but it was fair game. When you're in the street, these are the rules. You don't know death or prison at the end of the day. But it's war. Survival of the fittest.
He acknowledges that once you join the street life, it's pretty much impossible to escape it. So he emphasizes conquering the peer pressure and never joining in the first place.
First thing is conquering the peer pressure. When I came up, like I tell people, and it's no excuse, but when I came up, I was around gangsters, people that taught me how to survive in the streets. They don't have me. I didn't have that, so they got me now to show them, like, hey, I've been through this, I've been to the feds, or soup in the mackerel. I've watched this stuff, I've seen this stuff. I understand what you're going through out here, but here's the thing. Stop worrying about the materialistic things, because you could say, this is my block. Had the best cars, had the finest females. When you go to jail, all that's gone, it's over with. Next man up. Your best friend gonna be trying to hump your girl, because first thing he gonna go by a house. You all right? You need something? Come and lay your head on my shoulder. You want something to drink? And he in the bed. When you call home, you hear that snoring. Who that is? You hear that man voice. Now you mad, you slamming the phone, you upset. So my thing is, stop worrying about what your friend's gonna say. Don't be afraid to say, no, I'm not getting in that car. No, I don't want that gun. No, I'm not going to commit that crime, because when you go to jail, you're going to be by yourself. We see it over and over again now with social media now, that friends turning on friends, friends turning their back, wives going the other way, because when you dog them women and girlfriends when you on the street, now you're in prison, they're going to dog you. It's just the same thing. It's just, it's just around the circle. So I have a nonprofit called They Need Us. I reach out to the average youth. I talk to the average youth. I let them know this is what I've been through. This is what I've seen. I've been stabbed, shot, car wrecked, life sentence. I've been in juvenile state and fed. So there's nothing you can run on me.
Well, after 20-some years of prison, Gangsta finally decided that he wanted another chance at life on the streets. So given the clever guy that he is, he figured out a way to achieve the impossible. He met with the FBI and he decided to give up all of the crimes that he and the Hot Boys ever did. And in exchange for closing all of these cases, the FBI decided to let him go free. Now before you call him a snitch, remember that everyone he was rolling with had already passed away. So talking about what he, Mosquito, Dooney, and Sterling did together really didn't harm anyone. It was a win-win, no-brainer for Gangsta, but because he made the no snitching rules, a lot of people were not happy. So of course, me being me, I asked him what he thought of people who call him a rat.
When you see me, I like Velveeta. I always tell people this, words. We say back there, sticks and stone me, break my bone, words don't hurt me. Because I say this. Some people say, no, you ain't rap, but I say, okay, yeah, I did snitch because I made the rules, do not sit down with the people. And I did that. I accept my lick. Yes, I've denounced the streets, so I'm not in the streets anymore. I don't live that life anymore, but they call me a rat, a snitch. I'm fine with that. I have bulletproof emotions on his social media site, and plus I'm winning, so it is what it is. I know back if I was in the street, they wouldn't talk to me like that.
Now, after getting out, Gangsta has moved on to his new positive life. As I observed personally, he takes his religion very seriously, he wants to make a lot of money, and he wants to help out the youth. So if you're interested in all of his stories and seeing him react to other events, then you should definitely check out his YouTube channel. But not only this, he's passionate about films and he definitely wants to make a movie about his life.
Oh man, I'm trying to do a movie. I'm looking for some people to invest in my movie. I want to do the movie called Them Boys at War. The story, man, you just talked about. I got a lot of different stuff in it that I want to do, like The Wire. My people already had a manuscript wrote up. I want to be on my Tyler Perry 50 Cent stuff. I want to start doing movies. I want to move on from social media because that was a good start, but now I want to start doing these movies, getting behind the camera, behind the scenes. I have a record label. I don't want to say the name that I own this because I don't want people to take it on my artists. Oh, you signed to a rat, you signed to a snitch, and they could be a good artist, but it might hurt them. Because I got people now that we want to talk to.
Alright, man. That was 2 hours and 16 minutes. Shout out to Swamp Stories for the story. Shout out to Terrance Gangsta Williams. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this video. And yeah. Show ass Tweakin reaction. And we out of here, man.